Bien.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello to one and all. I have the job of co-presiding over this session this morning, so I would like to invite the French presidency and also the previous presidency from Italy of EUSALP and the European Commission to deliver some welcome messages. So everyone has 4 minutes to speak. So I'm underlining that because we're going to start with the president of the South region, or the Provence-Côte-Alpes-du-Sur region, Renaud Muselier. The floor is yours, but you only have 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. This is a very pleasant opportunity for me to open this General Assembly of EUSALP on the 14th of December 2021. And I would really like to commend you, Mr. Minister, for the work which has been carried out throughout the presidency, and working with my colleagues. We've been doing this together. It's a team effort. I would like to commend Marguerite Dufay, who is president of the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region, who is a councillor, a quality partner. I'd also like to commend Fabrice Panecouk, who is in charge of the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, and he has been so efficient and very effective on the ground. Madame Cataneo, VP of the Lombardy region, Mr. Cataneo for his efforts. And I'd like to say hello to all of you who are remotely following us on Zoom, and I'd like to thank those who are present in the room for all of the work that's been carried out. Hosting you here in Nice, at the foot of our snow-capped mountains, is marvelous, but it makes us think of all of those difficult times last year in many of our regions when we had the Alex storm. I would like to commend our friends here in Nice who are hosting us here, and with whom I've had a lot of discussions, and we will be hearing from them later on. So PACA, Piedmont, Ligurie, the Val d'Ost have been working together to rebuild their valleys, coping at the same time with the ravages of the COVID pandemic that we are all going through. It's a difficult time for everybody. But as for Alex is concerned, solidarity really kicked in, and I don't want to add my words to all the other words you've heard about it, but let's look forward to concrete reconstruction projects. For the PACA region, there are 60 million euros in the Solidarity Fund from Europe, which have been spent to support the Roya Valley and the Tine Valley. Above and beyond the human losses, the environment and economic damage, this natural catastrophe encourages all to take stock. What global policies for managing risks across the borders must be adopted? How can we protect our populations and our business activities in these areas? What innovative methods can we use to reconstruct? Talking about strategy in the month of December for this big region covering mountains, is it in our hearts? We are thinking about tourism, winter sports, nature. Let's just take a look at those pictures which we saw a minute ago on the screen. We all know how beautiful our valleys are and our mountains are. I am thinking of all of our ski resorts, our mountain resorts, which are hoping to recover. They've had 2 terrible seasons in France here, but also in neighbouring countries. So I know, ministers, how dear the Alps are to your heart. The challenges for our different countries are very high in terms of sustainable tourism throughout 4 seasons, accessibility, mobility, keeping our youngsters with us, and enhancing our appeal. In January 2020, When France took over the presidency, nothing could point to the huge challenges that we were going to have to face. And I would like to commend once again all of those who were around this table, and I would like to remind everyone of the role that the prefect played and other people, Mr. Tokarski also, who played a wonderful role. We all remain united. We were very active on the themes which interested us, despite what we had to cope with in our offices, in our everyday life, what with the pandemic and all. So we remained committed during a French presidency to create an alpine region which is very resilient. We are going to take a look at the 7 pillars which we identified, and I would like to thank all of those who have worked. I'm just going to say bit of an aside here. It's always very impressive when you're working with EUSALP. We have 80,000 inhabitants in 40 regions in 7 countries. And in the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur region, we have 60% of our territory, which is mountainous. Hence the importance of working together in Europe, and hence the importance of being so committed to ensure that Europe continues to be constructed and to function and can evolve. Thanks also to the Alpine Valleys. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you to one and all. Welcome to Nice. Welcome to our PACA region. Thank you very much, dear Renaud, for welcoming us here to your region, because you are at home here. And thank you also for all the logistics which have been provided in what is a difficult situation with lots of constraints. I would also personally like to thank you for the very proactive role the region has played over the past 2 years in the French presidency. And I'd like to underline the role played by the different teams in the offices and out in the fields. Chantal Emiot is with us here today, and she has also been a star player. I would now like to invite the president of the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region to speak, Madame Marie-Guy Dufay, who often says that she is the young cousin of the Alps. So I would like our young cousin, who has been very, very busy working for the French presidency, and I'd like her to say a few words to us. The interpreter cannot hear the speaker. The microphone has perhaps not been switched on. The interpreter cannot hear the speaker. That's right, the microphone was not switched on. Dear Renaud and dear Fabrice Panecook, who is representing the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region. So the 3 of us together, we have been able to demonstrate that teamwork is something which we are very familiar with. And I really am delighted to have spent these 2 years working with you, despite all of the ups and downs we've been through. But we have shown that solidarity and teamwork here in France is something we're very familiar with. I'd also like to commend all the representatives of the different regions. Lombardia, Piedmont, the Tyrol, the Trentino area, representatives of the different governments, the Secretary General of the Alpine Convention, too. So we have just come through a very amazing period. The last time we got together in a General Assembly in Milan, we couldn't imagine what we were about to go through. These 2 years were totally unexpected, marked by the pandemic. So here we are, at the end of our 2-year presidency, to take stock of the presidency and to look forward to the future together, my dear partners. I would just like to say a couple of words about not only the representatives of states and governments. I would like to think for a couple of moments about those laborers of the EUSALP, without those hands and those feet, without which nothing could be done in our projects. So, as I've already pointed out, in the Alpine area, we are working together. We deploy solidarity throughout our territory. But it's important to note that we have to keep in mind the need of acting very fast for the climate because time is running out and the impact of climate change are becoming more visible, very sadly, on our mountains, the flora, the flora and the fauna of our mountains. So over the past 2 years, we have been working on subjects which will be levers for combating climate change. These levers are transport, managing forests, renewable energies, and developing hydrogen. I'm delighted that the EUSALP family has expanded, welcoming into its midst as observers the Grand East region. Jean Rotonnet is the president of that region. So the EUSALP family has already opened up to youngsters, and that is a huge source of satisfaction. Today, in the bodies that we have in the EUSALP, we have a youth council composed of 27 members, and its job is to speak on behalf of youngsters to put forward their proposals on the different subjects that are broached in the different action groups. So this youth council started its work last summer, and later on we'll hear 2 members of that council give us their feedback, make some suggestions. And it's amazing to see how very committed they already are. Youngsters are not only working in their own council. We have networks of young actors that are being created and strengthened over the past 2 years, which means that youngsters from all backgrounds can be involved in a very virtuous circle of thinking about how the Alps and the mountains will evolve in the future, and also designing their own future in this big area with so many challenges. So we will be able to hear from the finalists from the competition for new ideas at the end of the day, and I'm sure we will all be very admirative of their talents and the creativity of these youngsters. They're brimming with ideas to sketch out a more attractive future for the mountains. So I just want to underline how much Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region has been benefiting from this EUSALP presidency. We have had an opportunity to consolidate allegiances in the fields of producing hydrogen and working on the wood industry. The EUSALP activities in 2021 started with an event which is very dear to my heart. It enabled us to share our very inspirational experience in the Jura region in the field of working with medium and small-sized resorts in the mountains. Thanks to cooperation across the borders, through EUSALP, well, this experiment of our small resorts, they're small resorts which are distant relatives of those big resorts in the Italian, the Austrian, and the French Alps. But as we all know, small is beautiful. We have nothing to be ashamed about, and our small resorts have been able to become benchmarks. So we'll be talking about this in the roundtables later on. Philippe Alpi, who will have an opportunity to talk about our experience in detail. So there's a lot happening with many players who one would never have imagined working together are doing that now. And I am thrilled that these initiatives are going to continue in such important subjects, such as the future of these small resorts that can no longer simply rely on the snow. So our region is cooperating, and we want to cooperate ever more. And we're working on projects which are very meaningful. We foster active solidarity. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. I really do want to say how very personally committed you have been over the past 2 years, as has your region during the French presidency. And I would like to underline what has been done for youngsters. That is a subject which is particularly dear to your heart. Now I'm going to invite the representative of the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region to take the floor, Fabrice Panecook, my partner in crime, I would say. We have known each other for a few years now, and we're both past our prime, so he is just an old pal of mine. So, Fabrice, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I would also like to commend Marie-Guite and Renaud, presidents of their regions, and I would like to also commend the different representatives of the PACA region, the European Commission. Elisa Ferreira is a part of our group. Madame Christiane Barré is also with us, and I would like to thank you. Generally, although the game is not yet over, I'd like to thank you for everything which has been set up over the past 2 years, for your involvement, which has been so important, and all of the energy which you have injected into our projects, because it's a long-term collaboration, and you have never wavered. So I would like to thank all of those who've worked with you within the framework of this project. I'd also like to thank our colleagues from Italy, from the Piedmont and Lombardia regions. And I would like to salute those who in the Val d'Aoste are talking about sustainable mountains recently. I would like to thank our Swiss, Slovenian and Liechtenstein members who are very active in our EUSALP. This is great that we're all here together in the flesh, because we have seen each other frequently, but very often it's been on a screen. That hasn't hampered our work, of course. However, it has slowed it down a little bit. The COVID crisis has impacted EUSALP directly in the way that we are organized. This has highlighted our weaknesses, but it's also shown that we need new channels for working together in our different territories and regions. Very quickly, we recognize that cooperation is a key element which will mean that we can work together to find solutions in the future. From the 4th of February 2020, we talked about what was going to become of our manifesto, the one which we had discussed in June 2021. This is a roadmap for our collegial presidency, the French presidency. There were key initiatives which were identified, thinking mainly of energy, tourism, transport, and the production and consumption of wood. The health and economic crisis we've been going through is as important as the environmental challenges we are facing. When we take a look at the mountains where we live, we have a very rich heritage to manage. It's a responsibility for us if we want to pass it on to future generations in good conditions. Our heritage, our biodiversity, this harmony that we have living with nature are so many factors that mean that we absolutely have to make very brave choices to keep it alive and to protect it. It's, of course, the demands are very high, but it's worth it. And I think that this is why we're all working together this morning. We just cannot be passive witnesses of what's going on. So faced with all of these challenges, faced with all of these issues, macro-regional policies are a key tool. And at a time when we have a key role to play, EUSALP, with all of the countries and the populations that Renaud described, we all have a shared heritage. Now we know that the area is ripe for reflection and for action. And I think we really have to confirm here that we need to take concrete action now. Concrete action is an echo from the field. That's where it all begins, out on the ground, and it filters up towards us. EUSALP is therefore a junction between the lands and the different countries and Europe. We have European funds at our disposal, which will be the guarantee that we can take action. EUSALP's role is to federate players out in the field and to do that with the regions. The 3 regions which we are representing here are very diverse and have shown that working together, collegiate force is a reality, and that together we can be stronger than we are separately. And I'm saying this as I take a look at my colleague Chantal. We are co-workers to protect the mountains, and EUSALP is a great platform for us working on our 2 platforms. We have shown over the past 2 years with the commitment for a sustainable future in the mountains, and we must continue and work further, gather more people in to make sure that the mountains stay alive, are peopled, and that they generate economy but are protected. We have 2 days to spend together, and we are at a milestone where we can take a look back at work which has been carried out. We can see what has been achieved, and now we can move forward with a shared strategy, and we can work with this Green Deal and the support of Europe to work together for the mountains. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you very much, dear Fabrice. Now again, when you talk about mobilization and commitment that you've had and you've shown throughout this French presidency, including as a vice president of the Committee of the French Alps, next to Chantal et Méhoud. And thank you for the proactive role of your region in the French presidency, beyond the fact that you are attending 100% of the events that we organize, because you're even here when the event is not planned, is not organized. So I really want to commend you for that. Now, I would like to invite someone that I've known for many years, because we've been, and there's a number of us who've carried this macro-regional strategy for the Alps since a long time. I will not refer to the Bible anymore, but I would like to greet and invite Raffaele Cataneo, who's a Minister for the Environment and Climate of the Lombardy region. Raffaele, I think you are with us in video conference.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tous.
Thank you. Hello,
Buongiorno a
everyone.
tutti. Permettetemi di intervenire in
Let
italiano,
me
una
allow
delle
you
lingue
to
delle Alpi.
intervene and speak in Italian, because this is one of the
anche la
languages of
lingua
the
italiana
Alps.
possa
I
risuonare
really appreciate the fact that
del
the
contesto della
Italian
nostra assemblea
language
quest'oggi.
can be
Come
spoken within our assembly
ricordava
today.
il ministro Giraud, che voglio
As
ringraziare per il lavoro
the minister
straordinario che ha
said,
fatto
who
insieme
I want to
ai
thank
tre
for his excellent
presidenti
job
delle
that he
regioni
has carried out with
francesi,
the 3 presidencies
Provence-Alpes
of
Côte
the
d'Azur,
French,
Bourgogne-Franche-Comté
for the first
et
regions of the French
Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes,
presidency,
che hanno reso possibile la
Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, Auvergne,
prosecuzione
and
del
PACA,
lavoro della strategia macroregionale per le Alpi in 2 anni
that
così
the work that
difficili.
was
Io vi
done
porto il
to
saluto
go through
della
these 2
Lombardia, ma
difficult
anche
years
di tutta la
with
delegazione italiana come
effective work.
rappresentante
So I
dell'ultima
would like to greet you in the
presidenza
name of the Lombardy
precedente,
and
la
the whole of
presidenza
Italy as
italiana del
the
2019.
representative of
Oggi
the former
la delegazione
presidency, the
italiana è
Italian
presente
presidency
sia
of
fisicamente che
2019.
virtualmente.
Today, the
In
Italian
forze sono presenti
delegation
la regione
is
Piemonte, la Valle
here
d'Aosta, Friuli Venezia
in
Giulia, la
person
provincia di
and
Trento,
virtually.
la provincia di
The
Bolzano che
Val
si
d'Aosta,
accingono ad
the
assumere
Friuli, the
un
Trento
ruolo
province of
importante.
Bolzano,
Però io non
will
posso
play
non
an
andare con il
important part,
pensiero
are here as
a
well.
quel 28 novembre 2019,
I
2 anni fa,
cannot
all'Assemblea
not
Generale
mention
ospitata
November
a Milano.
2019
Eravamo in un
during the
contesto completamente
General Assembly held in
diverso.
Milano.
E
Of
allora,
course, it was a
come
complete different
ricorderete, la
times
dichiarazione conclusiva
in different
aveva a
contexts. You
tema
remember
il
that the final
rafforzamento degli strumenti di
declaration
cooperazione
talked about the
macroregionale, gli
reinforcing
strumenti
of
tecnici e
cooperation
politici
tools for
e
the
il
macro regions.
consolidamento del tema della green economy
All the
come punto
instruments
principale
to
del
reinforce
nostro lavoro,
the
lo
theme
sviluppo
of
di
green
azioni congiunte.
economy as a central, as a focus point
Certamente non
of
ci
our works to
immaginavamo
develop
allora
for our
quello che poi
joint
avremmo dovuto
actions. So
attraversare nel
we
2020
could
e
not even
ancora
imagine at the
nel
time what
2021
we're
e
going to
ricordo
see
il
in
kick-off meeting
2020
a
and
Lione,
in
proprio
2021.
alla
I
vigilia
would like to remind you the
di una
kickoff in
soglia che
Lyon,
stavamo
the day
inconsapevolmente
before
varcando, la soglia di una
of
crisi
threshold that we're about
sanitaria
to
ed
cross,
economica senza precedenti.
the beginning of an unprecedented sanitary crisis. However, the themes that we had at the heart of our works in 2019, those themes are still the central themes of our action. I would like to thank the French friends, the French presidency, for having reaffirmed how fundamental those themes are in these times. The European Commission also participated in an open debate on its political agenda, its budget, and has planned the implementation of new tools to tackle the sanitary crisis and the perspective of growth and different development models that would be more sustainable, inaugurated by the Green Deal. The tools are sometimes new, the Bauhaus, European, which allows some new forms of urban renewal, and also by putting in place the biggest budget ever adopted. A few months ago, at the end of November, the budget of the European Union was adopted for 2021, and that allows to back health issues, climate change issues, small companies, all the themes that we put at the heart of our common work. The biggest budget, 155 million euros for this recovery plan. So why is our macro-regional strategy still important? For the EUSALP, as we know how to call it, our strategy matters because it is still time to restart the cooperation among ourselves. The cooperation among ourselves is even more important than it was yesterday. It's a cross-border cooperation. It's a cooperation between the territories of the Alps, who are at the same time a lab of governance at multi-levels. A cooperation that is needed, and I would like to insist on the fact that the macro-regional strategies play an even bigger role today to increase the interactions between our territories within the European Union by sharing their experiences, by proposing solutions that come from our territories and our region. The territories would like to have an even bigger voice in Europe. We're aware of that, but this is the tool that we have in our hands and that we want to use as efficiently as possible. I would like to thank again the French presidency for the excellent work that they have done during the last 2 years and for having kept alive our macro-regional strategy with a governance model that is collegial. Between the state, the 3 regions that are involved, we appreciated this collaboration as an example of cooperation at the regional level and the state, and that is to be continued in the years to come. I am sure that the results that are presented will reinforce our work. Who will take the presidency in the future will have to do the same work and show the same commitment. I am sure that the Lombardy region is completely available for this project, and it's the same for all the Italian regions and our government to pursue this common work for territorial cooperation and to reinforce the friendship between our regions and the people who live there. An historic cooperation that will grow to build the Europe that we are dreaming of today and that we want to build tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Regional Minister. Thank you also for what you do in your region, in the Lombardy region, beyond the presidency of 2019 and to the benefit of the governance of the EUSALP. Thank you for your personal commitment. I would like to now greet the director of the European Commission, who has taken this position very recently, and that will talk to us about the macro-regional strategy. We are in close touch, whether it's for the macro-regional strategy, but also for the future presidency of France of the European Union. And I would like to invite you, Mr. Director, to speak in the name of the commissary, Elisa Ferreira, the commissioner.
Dear all, it is with great pleasure that I participate on the behalf of the European Commission and European Commissioner in today's event. Today we are witnessing the transition between two presidencies, so it is a good occasion to compliment the French presidency for what it has achieved, but also to express our trust and conviction that the Italian presidency will match this performance. And I think this transition shows the importance of the mechanism based on rotating presidencies that are a driving force beyond the implementation of the strategy. We are also in a particular moment of time where member states and regions finalize their 2021-2027 cohesion policy programs and also recovery and resilience plans. So it is crucial that we embed now the priorities of the EUSALP, SUERA, strategy in these programs. And it makes a lot of sense as the strategy zooms in the general EU priorities of a green and digital transition into the Alpine area, linked by common challenges, such as melting of glaciers, but also by common geography, history, and culture. The cooperation and joint investment is a natural reply to these challenges. Of course, in this work, we, the European Commission, stand by the EUSALP members, including with the help of technical support structure, which can be used, for example, for a better governance needed for the cooperation. We have already seen how well this cooperation could work and how it can turn political declarations into something very real. Just to give you one example that you certainly know, EUSALP started developing green infrastructure in the Alpine region through the STAR initiatives. These initiatives aim to convert the political declaration on the Alpine green infrastructure into projects and investment strategies. So we hope that now, based on this work, the EUSALP will elaborate a common roadmap for decarbonization of transport in the Alpine region. And it will use cohesion programs to invest in it. In this way, it would become a model region for a trans-European green infrastructure, but also of a new carbon-free tourist and travelers experience, promoting green hydrogen as an energy vector to decarbonize the Alpine economy. And if I zoom out of this project and see it more broadly, let me end by saying that I hope that in the coming years we'll see much more of such successful projects, that in particular will reflect the ambitions and aspirations of young generations who link their future with that of the Alpine region. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Director Tokarski, for these words that are very inspiring and motivate us to believe in the future of the European Union and on these macro-regional strategies that are particularly relevant, whether they focus on the Alps or the regions. And I'm thinking now about one that I know well, which is the Danube region, which is particularly interesting as well. I think that now I have to say a few words to wish you a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the members of government, national and regional governments, ladies and gentlemen, from the Parliament, presidents of regions, Madame Déléguée Générale, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the European Union and the Commission, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, directors, I have the honor to say a few words to open this General Assembly. So first of all, I would like to tell you how happy I am to chair this General Assembly here in Nice. And I want to underline how anchored the metropole is in the Alps, because half of the territory of the region is in the Alps. And I remember that as the president at the beginning, the president of the metropole said that it would go from the mountain flowers to the fish that are in the sea of the Mediterranean. I would like to also greet the mountain policy of the metropolis and its involvement in many projects. And talking about the border French-Italian project, I would like to hold this EUSALP forum in Nice in this hybrid format, half in person and half in video conference. After having held it in December 2020, it's still much better to see a few people around the table. Last year was a bit more complicated. It is a very happy coincidence that we're holding this last event of the French presidency in Nice, who is the most Italian city of France, to give the job to the Italian presidency after the signature of the Quirinal Treaty. The General Assembly of the EUSALP is an important moment because after 2 years of French presidency, 2 years that were marked by a pandemic that completely upended our ways of working and modified our interactions and modified the way we would look at the Alpine region and its future. Despite all that, the work program that was very ambitious was maintained, was kept, and the works happened. I would like to thank my neighbor, Mrs. Delegate General Madame Barré, but also all the teams around Nicolas Gouvernel who worked to make it all happen. So this is a very specific, special period because the programmation of European policy for cohesion is already underway for the EUSALP, which first goal is to coordinate better the European policies, including the cohesion policy, which is a key lever. It's a very key moment that we are at now to take stock of the success that we're brought by the macro-regional strategies. These strategies play a role in the multi-level governance. As Mr. Director highlighted, it helps us to territorialize the major European goals, but also to coordinate and align the European policies, the national policies, and the regional policies around the challenges that are common to a territory, to a region, whether it's a river, the sea, or mountain, as it is here the case for the EUSALP. So the quality of our results depend on our capacity to cooperate and to make sure that we face the challenges of this great alpine region, to be attractive. There's a climate change to tackle. Services to the population also are very important, particularly for the youngest, because beyond the major principles of governance, the beneficiaries remain and will remain the inhabitants of the Alps, the companies, the alpine associations, biodiversity, and alpine nature. So EUSALP is the living proof that macro-regional strategies work and that they can bring some concrete changes. It's this real example of a governance, a European governance that works, and that allows us to face common challenges while building together the future of our region. EUSALP really represents this Europe of proximity, this Europe of territories that shape the life of our citizens and that we'll wish So I really thank you for your commitment, your previous commitment, your present commitment, and your future commitment. And I want to now give the floor to the delegate of France, who's going to give us the agenda for the day. Christian, it's about time that you're going to get yourself to work. Yes, Mr. Minister, 2 points on our agenda. First, the assessment of activity of the EUSALP with all the priorities as for its governance. And second part, define the priorities of the implementation of EUSALP in 2022 under the Italian presidency. Thank you, Christian, for this announcement. I would like to repeat it, but I want to commend your role in the coordination of the EUSALP over this last 2 years, and I give you back the floor immediately so you can introduce our assessment of activity under the French presidency. Thank you again, and thank you to all of you who spoke this morning, and for your kind words towards the EUSALP team and all the teams of the partnership of the 3 regions with whom we've worked very well. I would like to greet the action group and commend the action group and the previous presidency, Slovenian, German, Italian with Lombardy, for the excellent work that they've done over the first years of the implementation of EUSALP, with many exchanges of very good quality, of experiments that were conducted, namely with the competition, the award program, and the program Alpine Space. I want to remind you that the French presidency happened at a key time for many reasons. It's a time between 2014 and 2017, the pluriannual period of the European Union, where we have all the the budget programs aligned. It was also a very key time because of the action groups of the Sierra, and also because of the pandemics that we lived through. So the French presidency had the ambition to impulse NACT 2, if we could say that, for the macro-regional cooperation in the Alpine region, and that was translated in the first semester of 2020 with the political priority, common political priority of states and regions in the manifesto that we referred to recently, a manifesto for a resilient and sustainable Alpine region, which was the first, our first work that we did remotely. Mobilities and transport, decarbonated transport, local production, protecting biodiversity, prevention of natural hazards, energy transition, youth and attractiveness of the territories were the major themes. And from an operational point of view, 5 priorities were put in place by the action group and redefined to be adjusted to the crisis that we are facing now. Carbon neutrality of the Alpine region, the industry sectors, ecology, land use planning, accessibility of services and digital services, and financing as well. I would like to greet and thank the capacity of adjustment of all the actors of the EUSALP in face of the sanitary crisis that allowed us to carry on the cooperation despite the strong constraints of having to work remotely. Where we were holding exchanges, we maintained all the meetings, and we also redefined the events between the various lockdowns. We also took the pandemics in count in our events, and we have a post-COVID plan that we elaborated in the second semester of 2020 for action groups and with an intensification of the digital use in the mountains, with the smart programs, which we did here in this same region with Les Ors, keeping a decarbonated environment for the people who live here throughout the year, but also for the tourists, developing transformation in short-circuit production, which gave us a chance to visit the region of Fabrice Bancouk to do some visits on the ground, development of green and blue tram lines, and ecology in urban centers. I would like to greet as well and thank the solidarity that was expressed throughout these 2 years in face of the pandemics, with cross-border actions that we helped put together last year in face of the natural catastrophes that we remember. I'm now referring to the activation of the Solidarity Fund for the European Union, thanks to the joint efforts of the EUSALP for the territories that were hit by this Alex tempest. I am happy to see that despite all the difficulties, states, regions, commissions, action groups, executive councils, and local authorities, all the results are here in all categories under the French presidency and the action group that allowed to keep the cooperation alive and to take stock of the period of 2014-2020 by capitalizing on European projects and also incubating new projects. That's what I wanted to say. And in your files, you have a project for a draft of the assessment of the French presidency with the approval of the Executive Council. I encourage you to take a look at it because it is very rich. And I think we can be proud of all the actions that we have put in place in the last 2 years. I would like to say as well that this draft assessment includes the one of the governance, that our minister will identify the actions later on, and the commitment of the youth. Thank you very much, Christiane, for this recap. Of course, it doesn't encompass all the work that was done, but it was done in a very few words and little time. So, of course, we are on the SNCF and not on the German rail, so that's why we're a little late. That's what makes the diversity in the European Union. Thank you very much. And before I get into the details of the themes that we will look at today, I would like to hear the ambassadors from our civil society of the presidency who will give us his own testimony. As a witness, Nicolas Plein, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I'm very happy to be with you this morning to close this French presidency, because 2 years ago when we were in Lyon for the opening, we didn't imagine that the world was going to change so quickly with this 2 years of sanitary crisis. And when we look back at the Lyon event, we could not imagine that in 2 years we would be wearing masks and that all that was going to happen. It's really something that changed the world and marked the French presidency, and show even more the point of having these macro-regional strategies to increase collaboration. And that's what the sanitary crisis showed us, this collaboration processes between various countries of the EUSALP, collaborations between Austria and Italy on the sanitary crisis, which actually is linked to the climate change. That shows that we need those collaboration processes to face the pandemics or events such as the Alex tempest. So thanks to the French presidency for this governance. because we're all joined by this common passion for mountains, and it's very strong. When we go on the ground to shoot movies or to meet the people, would be project leaders, we realize that the common denominator is this passion for the mountain, and they really want to work to advance this transition, this environmental transition. So when we meet these people on the ground, we realize that when we're in Métabier to look at the climate change transitions, and in ski resorts, we realize that there are people really looking at solutions, and that shows that to be part of this transition gives you energy and makes you happy to transform things and to change things around. And there's a very nice dynamic there. So that's something that struck me over the last 2 years. It's the dynamic that we had in Métabier and that exists in other ski resorts in other regions. Last point, in the Alps, we have, at the same time, when we talk about the French Alps, we have a climate region. We are the lab of the climate change transition because we are facing it all the time. We had an economic model that was based on snow, and now we have to reinvent an economic model and find solutions to adjust. So this is very important for the future because we have at the same time show solutions and serve as an example for regions that are suffering less from it. But we're going to face this climate change as well in the next years. In Lyon 2 years ago, I didn't really understand what EUSALP was about and those macro-regional strategies were about. And we thought, okay, it's a very heavy mechanism. But 2 years down the road, we realized that there are many concrete projects on the ground thanks to this strategy. And we can measure concretely what it's about. And that, particularly in the current context, that it's very relevant to have cooperation with our neighbors across the border. So a big thanks for your work.
Bien, écoute.
Well, we thank you as much as you thank us, in fact. Your testimonial has been rather short because we're lacking in time, but Nicolas Blin sees the Alps out in the field, but also from up in the sky as well. He's got a very good vision. It's slightly different to our point of view. Is there a weight limit in the machines which you fly in? No, we have some passengers who are portly. What about myself? Anyone can take to the air. The heavier you are, the more acrobatics you can do in the sky. Okay, I've noted that. Thank you very much for your testimonial. It's great to hear your enthusiasm. And Mariquite loves the enthusiastic youngsters, and so it's great to have Nicolas Blin here as our ambassador of the civil society for the EUSALP presidency. It's great to have such youngsters who are so committed to energy transition and the resilience of the Alp area. Before we study our balance sheet, if you like, we are going to approve the creation of the Youth Council so that its representatives can intervene legitimately in our council discussions. So I'm going to invite the two members of the Youth Council, Thomas Wimmer and Eva Duzak, to take 5 minutes each to present the roadmap of the Youth Council with its proposals.
Vielen Dank. Zunächst.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today. because it's some achievement. When you look at the pandemic, it's not obvious that you can travel very easily. And secondly, we are all, including Eva and myself, we are delighted to be here today because it means that we have reached a first milestone. So youngsters are now on stage, they're on board because the council has been created under the French presidency. Eva and myself, we're young adults. We represent people between 18 and 29 years of age. We have a youth council now for us. We founded that. We founded the Youth Council, not only for ourselves, but for all youngsters. Often it can be, well, in August we met for the first time to lay the foundations for our work. We first of all addressed initial questions such as who are we, what are the values we want to defend, and how are we going to be organized, how are we going to communicate, and what are the subjects that we are going to tackle, what kind of projects are we going to work on. And it takes more than just a weekend to answer all of those questions. We had to have our general guidelines for our work, so they were laid during that first weekend. And we thought that we'd work on 4 themed groups depending on economic growth, connectivity, environment, and energy. And then there's a fourth work group which is working on several subjects, and they are intermediaries for all of the activities which are undertaken by youngsters. We had a second meeting in the month of November, and so we were able to work in further. As far as economic development is concerned, there are going to be concrete projects for the Youth Council. It can be quite tricky, so we are highlighting cooperation, coordination, and ensuring that migration through the Alpine zone is taken on board. We're going to hear something about that this afternoon. There were 2 other themed groups that were talking about mobility and enhancing cross-border cooperation, ensuring that there is more cooperation between service providers in the field of transport, for example. And we've also identified the importance of attending this conference here in Nice, analyzing data, and coming up with action proposals, which you'll be able to read in our newsletter. We will be publishing that next year. During this afternoon, though, you're going to hear about some more concrete results of the environment project. It is an intermediary. We want to talk about protecting the environment, the cultural heritage we want to talk about also, and we want to organize events that will convey information to youngsters. And at the closing ceremony, we are going to hear from even more youngsters doing their pitches. So there is another group which is involved in different themes, going to create an online platform. That was a project which was defined by a working group. And tomorrow there's going to be a working group. It's number 6, working group number 6, which will be held tomorrow, and we'll be focusing on that. So we really do hope that many people will come and participate in that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Thomas. Now let's hear from Eva. Dear members of this General Assembly, first of all, I would like to say hello. Thomas has given you a very good description of the subjects we've been working on up until now. I am going to present what we hope to work on in the future. Thank you. Very good. I really wanted to congratulate you for your work. Oops, I've got my headset on and I'll take it off because it's preventing me from concentrating what I'm supposed to be saying. So I was hearing the Slovenian translation. I love Slovenia, of course, because my great-grandmother came from that country. In fact, she was born in Austria, obviously, but in Nova Gorica. So that's why I love that country. So I wanted to congratulate you both, Thomas and Eva, for working on this Youth Council. And I would like to thank you very, very much, because now we've got a roadmap which is very ambitious for the Youth Council. And so I think you perhaps might want to speak again? No, you'll take the floor later on. Okay, I was getting things a bit confused there. All right, now I'm going to invite the first Vice President of the Parliament of Tyrol to take the floor. Her name is Sophia Kircher, and she is wanting to react to the roadmap for the Youth Council. Madam Kircher, the floor is yours. We're all ears. We can see you.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich hoffe, Sie können mich nun hören.
I hope you can hear me now.
Ich
Can you
wünsche
hear
einen
me?
schönen Vormittag aus Tirol
Very good.
und möchte mich herzlich bedanken zuallererst
Well, first of
bei
all,
den
hello
Jugendräten,
everybody.
die uns jetzt einen Einblick gegeben haben
I would like
über ihre
to
Roadmap. Ich habe die
thank
Gelegenheit
the
gehabt,
Youth Council members
heuer
who've
im
just
August in
described
Tirol
the
persönlich zu
roadmap.
treffen und habe hier gesehen, dass die
In the month of
Jugendräte mit einer
August, I
extremen
was
Begeisterung
fortunate
und
enough to
Motivation
meet
dabei
the
sind,
Youth Council
den
members,
Alpenraum und
and I
unsere
could see
gemeinsame
their
Zukunft zu
enthusiasm.
gestalten. Und ich glaube, das ist auch in der
They were
Verantwortung von uns
determined
Politikern
to
liegt,
pave out
dass wir
a
jungen Menschen
common
die
future for the
Möglichkeit
Alp
geben,
area.
dass sie sich aktiv
So
einbringen,
for
weil die
us
politischen Entscheidungen
politicians,
von
it's really
heute
important that
werden
we
die
make sure
Jugendlichen
that
am
youngsters have
allerlängsten
opportunities to
betreffen.
get
Und darum, glaube ich,
involved,
reicht es nicht, wenn wir
because
die
all
Ideen
decisions that we
nur
take
bewundern,
today
sondern wir müssen sie
will
auch
play out
ernst
in the
nehmen.
future,
Und darum
and
bitte ich auch in
they will
diesem
impact the future. So
dass wir den Jugendrat ernst
this is
nehmen
why
und vor allem dieses
I
Projekt,
would
das durch die Tiroler Präsidentschaft
invite
gestartet
this
wurde,
Youth
auch in den
Council
nächsten Jahren
to work
unterstützen.
hard, and I would
Wir haben sehr
like
viele
the grown-ups in
Herausforderungen, vor
inverted
denen wir
commas
stehen.
to
Die
take
Covid-Pandemie begleitet
heed
und beherrscht
of
unser aller
what their
Alltag. Auch die
suggestions are. Of
wirtschaftlichen
course, we're all coming
Konsequenzen
through
und der
COVID. We'll
Klimawandel
be
stehen vor
with
uns. Und
COVID
ich bin
going
der festen
forward.
Überzeugung,
It's
dass wir
impacting our
innovative
everyday
Ideen und
life. We've
Lösungsansätze
also got
brauchen,
climate change,
diese
so we need to find
Herausforderungen zu meistern.
innovative
Und da habe ich auch
solutions
sehr
so that we
große
can
Hoffnungen
rise to
an
these
junge
challenges.
Menschen. Und
So
die
I have high
Jugendräte
hopes
haben das
in our
gezeigt, dass sie
youth
innovative
and
Lösungsansätze
in the
haben,
Youth
mit denen
Council.
wir
They've
definitiv
already
auch die
demonstrated that they
Herausforderungen
have
lösen können.
innovative
Und ich möchte Sie alle
approaches
einladen,
that
heute am
will
Nachmittag
enable
findet
us
ja auch
to
das
rise to
Finale
these
vom Pitch Your
challenges. So
Project statt,
I
wo
would
ebenso
encourage
junge
you
Menschen
all
ihre
to
Ideen für den
be present this
Alpenraum
afternoon.
einbringen
There's
und
going to
Lösungen
be a session
aufzeigen.
of project
Abschließend
pitches
möchte ich mich
by
noch einmal
youngsters. They're
bedanken,
going to be
dass die
presenting
Jugendräte auch die
their
Möglichkeit
solutions
haben,
for the
jetzt hier mit
Alpine
am
region.
Verhandlungstisch zu sitzen.
So
Und ich denke, das ist
thank
genau
you very
das auch
much
für unsere
for
Zukunft braucht, dass junge Menschen mitgestalten,
inviting the
mitbestimmen und
Youth
so den
Council
Alpenraum
to
gestalten
this
und wir
General
Lösungen
Assembly.
gemeinsam
It's
finden.
important that
Vielen
they
Dank.
come to the table and they are with us to help us to find our solutions. Thank you very much. Well, you are very young yourself, in fact. You could be part of the Youth Council. So I am now going to hear from someone else who finds the subject very important. Of course, it's Marie-Guide Dufay we're talking about. So I really do want to thank you, Thomas Wimmer and Eva Duzak and Sophia Kircher. The three of you have just spoken out, and you typify the enthusiasm, the determination, the conviction that is yours. You're so committed. And I really do commend you for that. So this Youth Council project is a major project. It's not only important for me, for us here in this room, for elected representatives of the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region, but for all of France, the French presidency. We could never have done this without cooperation from everybody. So I'd like to thank all of the members of the General Assembly, the Executive Committee, and the Youth Pilot Group, because all together we have created rich ground for this Youth Council to grow. But above all, I really do want to thank the Tyrol land. Back in 2018, when it was president of EUSALP, it identified the need to get youths on board by launching a very fine project called Youth Shaping EUSALP. Since then, you have worked non-stop to ensure that youngsters are involved in EUSALP activities as much as possible, that youngsters can get together and meet each other. And we have really enjoyed working with you youngsters throughout our presidency. So, Madam Kircher, you are in Innsbruck. You were there when the Youth Council met for the first time. And the fact that you are here today, those events symbolize how important you feel that youngsters' voices are. You are part of that generation, a generation that wants to get involved and play an active role in constructing the world of the future. So we really want to thank you wholeheartedly for that. I'm also very grateful to the people who work with the Tyrol area, Melanie Planger and Florian Masque, not to mention the precious commitment of Nathalie Foutra. So I would like to commend the amazing work which you've all provided, 27 youngsters who were in this youth council, and we have Thomas and Eva who are the spokespeople. So it's great that you have been able to lay down the operational rules, identify priority actions, define working groups. It's so amazing, all of the energy which you've already dedicated to your new role. This afternoon, we will have an opportunity to witness your energy once again when the project pitches will be presented. Sadly, I will not be with you this afternoon. I really regret that. But my VP, Patrick Bolinos, who is in charge of Europe and cooperating with Europe, he will be there. He will be present. So what you've done is outstanding, particularly because you too have had to put up with these conditions that have been thrust upon us by the pandemic, and you have managed to meet in person a second time before today's meeting when it wasn't really planned. So that was the Nova Gorica meeting in Slovakia, enabled you to consolidate your roadmap and your key projects and take stock of your mission and your responsibilities. Some of you also actively participated in working groups at different EUSALP events and in other events such as the Remontana event. And I am thrilled to note that you are now well known and you are asked to attend all kinds of meetings, too many sometimes. You really want to be synergetic with other youth networks that exist throughout the Alps. Thanks to the workshop which you are organizing tomorrow at our annual meeting, it really is important that we don't all work individually when we share the same objectives. So it's worthwhile creating synergy within EUSALP and the Alpine Commission. So I really do encourage you to work with other youth organizations. As far as your working program is concerned, I'm touched by the fact that you have very precise ideas about what you'll have to do to guarantee jobs in our mountains, for example, to protect them, to protect the mountains from the negative impact of human activity. which is contributing also to global warming, you are suggesting the creation of special economic zones with tax incentives. And I encourage you to go down that avenue, but it will not be a very easy avenue to take, and I imagine it will take some time. You are conscious of the problems of mobility, because that really is the very crux of the matter when we're combating global warming. And we've all seen this in a survey which you are carrying out, you've just carried out among all participants here at the annual forum to identify what mode of transport they used to get to Nice. It's very good to prod us a little bit, to challenge us. I tried to be virtuous, but I'm afraid I didn't succeed wholly because I had to take a bit of plane, a bit of train, and yes, I was also in a car in my journey to get here, but I did my best. You are right. You have to prod us a little bit. And that's the way that we will all change our habits. That's the way we'll all move forward. So I would also like to encourage you in what you're doing in your blog, building bridges between the works carried out by different action groups and other youth networks, by conveying information in your blog and also organizing quarterly events. It's a great idea. Continue with that. You've got so much to share, and you're already doing that. I'm thinking about Ludovic Kaberski, who is organizing climate fresco workshops, a great tool for better understanding the emergency of climate change and what needs to be done. Each individual can participate in the solution because it can be avoided. We were able to organize such a fresco workshop today because for organizational reasons, but we are going to organize them in our different regions. So congratulations for your commitment, for being so enthusiastic, and for boosting us with your ideas and your projects that I will support with all of my colleagues, the councillors in the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté zone, because you have injected such dynamism into EUSALP. What on earth can we do without youngsters when we're talking about the future and the climate? So a huge thank you. All that you have started to do can encourage us for wonderful achievements in the future. Well, thank you very much for that declaration there, for that praise that you've given to the Youth Council. Thank you to the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté president. So now, formally, I am going to suggest that a member of the Youth Council would like to, or rather, I'd like anyone at the General Assembly to dare to be against the official recognition of the Youth Council. Otherwise, you need to be locked away in asylum if you want to be against this. So no one is against this. So I can officially declare that the Youth Council of the EUSALP has been created, and its program for initiatives has also been approved. Yes, nice to hear that round of applause there. Okay, now I suggest that we take a look at activities that have been organised on the different themes. So Fabrice Pancook from the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region is going to say what the French presidency has done for sustainable tourism throughout all of the seasons of the year. Fabrice, the floor is yours. Okay, there's a bit of trouble with the mics here. Yes, I think Bourgogne-Franche-Comté was trying to stop the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes representative from speaking. Everybody saw that. Yes, let's talk about tourism. To begin with, I would like to say that one can broach tourism from different angles. If I pinpoint on the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, I would say that this region is almost 200 ski stations, ski resorts, and lots of tourists. When we take a closer look and analyze tourism, yes, of course, we have ski resorts in villages, in distant valleys, at the top of mountains, on this snow itself, but always in the vicinity of conglomerations. These are places where people live all year round. These are places where professionals live. Residents are there to be with us and to ensure that we can discover all of the diverse aspects of these regions. So tourism, well, for many years now, we have been focusing on tourism, as Jérôme knows. That has taken us down the road of diversification. We've worked with our valleys on that. We've got a valley project, an integrated project, which enables us to broach all of the valley region when we're addressing questions such as mobility, accommodation, the economy, snow, local talents and skills that are used for tourism. So within the framework of EUSALP, we have been also working on tourism with the Piedmont region and the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes have been working together with Salzburg and its tourist information board. So this is there's going to be a workshop on this subject tomorrow with the main partners. So the French presidency of EUSALP steered us towards this subject of four seasons of tourism throughout the 4 seasons, because depending on how high you are, where you are, it's not always possible to have tourism throughout all 4 seasons. So we want to take that seasonal aspect out of tourism, and that needs to be applied to all of our territories with approaches which are integrated and which focus on diversification. And that also is why the French presidency has suggested making up a network of mountain resorts that are involved in tourism transition. That doesn't mean turning your back on what has made us so strong in the past. It means being very clear and lucid about what our strengths are, what our riches are, and what keeps our economic motors driving, whilst implementing diversification strategies. Within this framework, we have started to work with INRAE about making this network of mountain resorts which are working on transition. When you're talking about transition and EUSALP, you obviously have to refer to the tourism transition meeting and the different events which we've already taken part in. In September, we're going to have another event which is going to be unique. It's a first. We hope it's not going to be the one and only, but it was going to be a first, which ended up with a declaration. But above and beyond the words and declarations, we now have to get into the nitty-gritty, which is starting with work which is being carried out over recent weeks. We've had the different protagonists have been getting together. They are involved in transition. So the Queen Bee is they've been doing a lot of work like bees in a hive. So in the current context, we see that's a lot going on, a lot of changes in the mountains, particularly in the winter sports field. Ski resorts are evolving, and they are impacting the business models which need to be renewed, because once again, we cannot only be passive observers of what's going on. So the winter sports sector is a key economic factor. It means job, it means revenue for the resorts, and this is something which we have to cope with. So what I'm trying to get at here is that there is greater pressure, and we have to be very agile in our actions. That is the main message. Not defining a business model which has to be deployed everywhere, but we have to be agile, and we have to be able to cope with what the observations. We have to identify avenues that we can take to evolve, and EUSALP has to take part in this thought process, and the work which we carry out and will carry out will lead to a network of resorts throughout the Alps. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fabrice, for this report and this testimonial. I would like to tell you that the general states of tourism that you mentioned are going to be described in this magazine, that is magazine Espace. Unfortunately, it's only available in French, but there'll be an abstract in English. As everybody knows, is a language of the Alpine Convention. Many countries speak English in the Alps. I remember at the beginning of the Alpine Convention, there was a representation wanted to suppress Slovenian, and we were against it. So it is good when these types of article can be translated, and we'll do it in several languages. It's a great work that was done by the ministry in charge of tourism and of the territories that collaborated to this French presidency. And I would like to invite now the regional minister of the Piedmont region, Matteo Marnati, who's a co-pilot of the EUSALP for the economic sector, to take the floor. Matteo Marnati. Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here. A difficult moment for the European continent and for the whole world regarding tourism and sustainable tourism. The region of Piedmont, as my colleague said, is very keen to develop a sustainable tourism all throughout the seasons. Even if I don't have a specific mandate for tourism, I am in charge of environment and energy, but this topic can be very useful. If we talk about energy and sustainable tourism, it could be useful to create a model that for the tourist difficult times, as the ones we're in today, the tourists are lacking. There are not enough tourists. So it's very important to build infrastructures that could serve as the model of sustainable development. We're launching a private-public partnership, one of the best solutions, in my opinion, to have active tourism and develop digital solutions and support financing for us, Italy. There is a rare chance for resources coming from Europe for recovery and resilience. We need to help the companies of the tourism sector to have access to these funds and subsidies, and to also promote transport infrastructures. We're creating an ecosystem. As soon as the tourist arrives in Piedmont, in Caselle, which is the airport of the Piedmont region, which is going to become one of the most sustainable airports in Europe, we hope to give it energy autonomy through hydrogen. We were one of the first regions in Italy in 2018 to adopt a law for the creation of local energy communities that use renewable energies. With European funds and funds from the National Plan of Recovery and Resilience, we will launch the publication of the Italian government, and we want to be a leader in this plan. If we want to reach the European goal to reduce by 50% the CO2 emission by 2030, we really must encourage creation of such sources of renewable energies. We have important regional structures throughout the Alps, and also with the PV industry. The tourist who comes to Piedmont must arrive at the airport and use the sustainable infrastructures, buses, with working on hydrogen. We have the necessary technology to do that. And we have to promote a soft mobility to link the whole region and connecting it also with the other regions. It's a very big ecosystem that will allow us to reach a number of goals, to have tourist who's conscious and aware that he's using infrastructures of sustainable, and also we will protect the environment. With Venice, Emilia-Romagna, we're concerned about the quality of the air. The Alps are a wonderful place from an environmental point of view, but the Po area has also a situation of the quality of air that is quite concerning, and we need to accelerate the transition there. We need also to look at the social aspect as well and the protection of the environment. We have we have hit record highs in terms of drought this summer. In the Coni region, often the Piedmont is hit by floods, which are very fierce and make a lot of victims and damage to the infrastructures. We must act fast. Tourism can be an economic lever to accelerate this path. I'm trying to tell you in a few minutes to tell you what we're doing. The model to be pursued is the model that is going to lead us to energy autonomy throughout renewable energies. Thank you. It's a very interesting testimony that we just heard. I would like now to invite the General Director of Tourism of the Federal Land of Salzburg, who's the pilot of the sustainable tourism of EUSALP, to give us a word.
Ja. Ja, ich freue mich sehr, Sie als zuständige Sektionsleiterin im österreichischen Bundesministerium für Landwirtschaft, Regionen und Tourismus, heute hier zumindest einen virtuellen Beitrag leisten zu können. Und danke der französischen Präsidentschaft, dass Sie das Thema nachhaltiger Tourismus und ganzjähriger Tourismus heute hier so prominent auf die Tagesordnung gesetzt hat. Die
to make sure that sustainable tourism plays such a big part. The Alps is a unique landscape with a very important place to rest. We must protect this area as a sustainable area, and that takes a very important rank regarding the climate changes that we're facing. In 2018-2020, an international strategy for tourism was inaugurated to make sure that we could find an answer to diversify the offer for tourism and make sure that the offer would preserve the existing resources, creating an offer for an animation all throughout the year, and with many other actors, except then Austria, are committed to do it. So this will be closed economic circuits. It means also increasing the value regionally. You've said it already. Never again have we seen such a crisis as we have witnessed in the last 2 years, and particularly for us in the area of the Alps in Austria. We could never have imagined that a whole ski season could not happen. But because of the pandemics, we also witnessed that we always try to look for more for alpine destination as a place to rest and recuperate. But we have many challenges to address in the alpine regions, so we need good steering actions to do that. We need to do some awareness, particularly with the youth, to make sure that we'll have a reasonable behavior towards nature. Sustainable tourism throughout the last years has developed initiatives. In health tourism, it is also one of the sectors that represent a very important place. And it's followed by a working group, and we can see that it's gaining more and more importance in the context of the pandemics, because people need to different types of tourism that could be used throughout the year, regardless of the season. This health tourism, many partners are trying to organize a conference with us to look more into that topic. How can we have health tourism and come up with some reasonable offers and to use better the alpine resources for this health tourism while preserving our regionality? If I would like to say that before concluding, one of the factors of success with our national strategy of tourism is that the tourism destinations have to be spaces of life for everyone, not only the tourist himself, but the local population. So we have to take this into account and take the environment into account, and the effect between the link between tourism and climate change. And the previous speakers have mentioned it. We need to adjust to the framework conditions that have changed. We need to come up with some offers throughout the year to make sure that it's not all about one season, and that we need also to reduce the footprint. We need some sustainable mobility and sustainable energies. Many countries are sharing the same vision of this tourism in the Alpine region, and during the French presidency, it was shown very clearly in the works that were conducted. Thank you very much to them for that. So we need regional policies which take into account these interests. And a lot of people should be able to benefit from these destinations in the Alps, and that we can have tourism that is looking to the future. Tourism is a work of art, isn't it? It depends on the commitment of many actors, and it's only if everybody gets on board that the Alps will become the place where people want to be in. So I hope we can carry out our works with the same commitment that we've shown until today. Thank you very much. So the major actions conducted by EUSALP for tourism all season, which is a key sector for the Alpine region, which is, of course, facing the issues of climate change and, of course, the pandemics. I wanted to really congratulate the fact that we're holding this conference. There's a new edition of these general states to make sure that we carry on the good work, and that it is a European effort for all Alpine countries. I'm also very glad to see the works done by the INRAE for the structuring of Euro-Alpine network for the resorts that are committed to the environmental transition. And this project that you all know, that is Smart Altitude, I am very optimistic that this works will lead to a project financed by the new program Alpine Space. I would like to remind you that we are running late, that we're running more and more late. So now we are running 30 minutes late, which is not good news. So we're going to have to reimburse you for your train ticket. So I'm encouraging you to be all quicker, and I think we will do that as well on our end. I invite Fabrice Pankouk to tell us very quickly the report of activity in terms of promotion of local products in the mountains, or you can even supply us with the goods if you want, so we can all enjoy it for lunch. Thank you, Joël. So the train is coming into the station to tell you that the valorization of local products in the Alps has represented a major focus with two parts. The forest products and the other products. For the wood, two things. First of all, it provides jobs, and it is a sustainable resource that is key for territories. A conference was held on the topic in Aix-les-Bains on the 3rd and 4th of September 2020 to make progress with the forest communities. We also have a theme around accessibility, because only 19% of the surfaces are accessible easily. And on the employment topic, 10,000 people throughout all the companies present in the Alps. So that's a very big stake for this regional program that is forest and wood. So in this context, the works focused on two directions: valorization of the labels around the label wood from the Alps, which should make it easier to sell, and also with the multifunctionality of forest, a topic that is essential for two reasons. The first one, the natural hazards. We always have to talk about it more because it is a real concern in our mountains. And the second aspect is linked to biodiversity. We have financed the project called the Redia 4, which reflects the importance of taking into account the multifunctionalities. It was finalized this year, and we will now be able to put in place a task force on multifunctionality. That is exactly what I was mentioning early on regarding the farm products and pastoralism, which is a topic that we will be working on. We have to be careful of predators. This is also a very concerning subject. And regarding the other products, we have the will to promote labels, which is what we did with the region of the taste in the region of Région Rhône-Alpes. And that's why in 2022, within the action group, we will put in place a work group with the Alpine actors on the theme for the agriculture trade fair in Paris next March. Also, we are aligning ourselves on the food heritage. I know we all share this topic with many of our partners, starting with our Italian friends. So what I suggest now is that we can continue the steps for the labels, because we know this is a guarantee for success. Thank you very much, Fabrice, for this very important topic. Now I want to give the floor and greet Wolfgang Mayhofer for his promotion as a new General Secretary of the Alpine Convention. We've known each other for a while, and he really deserves it because he's very committed to the Alpine region. And I would like to give you the floor as a co-steering of this action group of EUSALP dedicated to protection and valorization of natural and cultural resources. Thank you, Joël. I would like to first thank the French presidency of EUSALP to have included this very important topic in its priority pillars. This is very important in terms of sustainability in general, but also in the context of resilience. The goal of the activities of this pillar was to promote agriculture and the forest industry in mountains. I want to start with agriculture, modernizing this agriculture, industrializing food supply have led to a disconnect between the production places and the consumption places in the Alpine region. It has turned very difficult for small farmers, particularly in the regions of mountain, where the production costs for food are higher than in the plain and where production volumes are limited. This has led to a reduction or disappearance of certain supply chains, the loss of biodiversity and the know-how of production, as well as difficulty to safeguard the landscape of production. Many communities, local communities in the Alps and elsewhere, are experimenting models of development based on commercial valorization of food products that are produced or transformed locally, which means that they are short circuits and the consumers are more and more aware of the supply chain and to a healthier food, and they're prepared to pay more money for products that come from local production, that imply small farms, and also practices that are respectful of the environment. This has been particularly clear during the pandemics, where the vulnerability of supply chain and food sovereignty came back on the table. Because of the closing of specific activities and the fact that some local products were not being bought by locals anymore, such as hotels and restaurants, people had to adjust very quickly in this context. Digital infrastructures and digital technologies have been very useful. The pandemic have also accelerated the necessity to have a good delivery system between the areas that are more isolated and the rest. So the supply chain are very important. This also applies to the wood sector. The subject is also linked to the implementation of the Alpine Convention, and the protocols are legally binding. First of all, the creation of conditions to commercialize food products in the mountains based on production methods that are unique and respectful of nature. That's a direct implementation of this protocol. The use of wood coming from sustainable wood production, and the cooperation between tourism, forest industry, and craftsmanship is a key part of this protocol. The prospects for the future are very promising because agriculture and forestry in the mountains represent a real potential of development for the creation of environmental products and services. I'm happy to see that we include the topic in our priorities for implementation for next year. This is important, so this approach can be implemented throughout the whole Alpine region. So let's keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Wolfgang. I realized that you stop understanding your native language when I say the number of minutes in German. I wanted to greet and commend the actions that were made in the favor of local products. And the approach that started from Bois des Alpes, the French wood, then extended to the whole of the Alpine area, is a very important fact when we have supply strategies, local supply strategies that are getting more and more difficult to put in place. So I am in favor of that. The annual meeting for the mountain labels and brands is also a very big event. The pandemic has highlighted a number of issues of the Alpine economic in terms of its vulnerability. I count a lot on the future presidency to see this very important topic of reindustrialization of the Alpine valleys, because it's going to guarantee jobs and it will help reduce these externalities of transport freight. And I count on that, on the convergence of all the skills and the experiences, so we can get to a fruitful proposition. I'm going to give the floor now to Renaud Muselier, who's going to present the activity report on decarbonated transport, and he's going to go at the speed of light. Since we're talking about transport this morning, it generates a lot of environmental questions. We have worked to bring some sustainable solutions to the local populations. We've considered that this was one of the pillars of Alpine recovery. Our goals were quite clear: promoting modal transport and rail to alternative solutions, progress to information system, modal and multimodal, improve the accessibility of the Alpine regions that are isolated, and support the energy transition. So we have put in place in the PACA region a survey on alternative fuels at the scale of EUSALP to promote the best practices, favor common initiatives, and escalate the needs for financing. In terms of needs of financing, we've done an important work to labelize the secondary lines and integrate them in the European network of transport. And that will allow these lines to benefit from European funding, which is very important. So also with our action group, we've organized a conference on mobility, a high-level conference in May last year, to integrate ourselves in the year of the rail. And after this event, we've made a common declaration, which is about to be adopted. And it's a great progress because it will allow us to have financial resources. So this is my presentation at the speed of light. Thank you, Renaud. I think some people have their mics on. Wolfgang, I think it's the case. If you could mute them, that would be great. Thank you for going so fast on the transport topic. It's probably because the train line from Marseille to Nice is up and running. So now I invite the President of Tyrol, Sophia Kircher, Vice President of the Parliament of Tyrol. So I would like her to go as fast as our President, Renaud Muselier. Thank you very much, Madame Vice President. Thank you. Okay, I will try to speak very fast, as a train. And I would start with the previous speaker left it in the Alpine region. For us, we want to make sure that we do a lot of transport on rail. It's a big priority. The population, as you know, in Tyrol, in Brentino, the population suffers from the 2.5 million of trucks that go through the Brenner. There's a tunnel that is being rebuilt, but even before that, we need other options that are more sustainable. And we also need to count more on rail. The European Parliament has given its approval for financial settlement that is not going to lead to the results that we expected. So I invite you all for the second reading, all the elected bodies, please invite them to give their approval for a directive that is more in favor to our goal. All this transport is difficult for us to live through it. So as the person responsible for this group, AG4, we commit to switch to rail. The next conference on mobility will be held on the 13th of May 2022 in Innsbruck, and I all invite you to attend it so we can find a sustainable path. The launch of Tyrol is also committed, so the youth takes part in this project, and that they travel by rail as well. There's this Euralin program, and this youth who are in charge of the program can show us how we can cross the Alps in a sustainable way. So please back this project as well, because we need to count on the youth. Thank you very much.
Well, that ties in exactly with the wonderful work which has been carried out. So I'd just like to say that you can travel fast and in a very clean way. So I would like to thank you for that information and for your personal proactive involvement in EUSALP. As we've heard earlier on, EUSALP has been a bit of an incubator. There have been many European projects which have been incubated within EUSALP, and I think it would be a really good idea to do many more projects of this sort so that we can use a new decarbonated travel. And I would like to encourage joint work with other parties working on rail through the Alpine area. I'm going to hand the floor to Marie-Guy Dufay, President of the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region. She's going to talk about the youth youngsters again, and I think she's going to be very succinct. Yes, earlier on I was talking about the council, the Youth Council. Now I'm just going to say a couple of words about the involvement in the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté of the youngsters. I'm going to start by thanking my advisor who worked a lot on that project, Liliane Lucasi. For the past 2 years, she's been working on the subject. She's been really heavily involved in that. Excellent cooperation, Renault, with state departments and the youth department in your region that enabled us every 2 months to organize a meeting which broached major themes for youngsters in cities, valleys, and alpine mountains. We have supported all of the initiatives in the Youth Alps project. Sadly, we were not able to organize the summer camps which we had hoped to organize in the High Jura because of the pandemic. But we did grasp the opportunity to present EUSALP's work to young participants at different summer camps that were held in July, August, and September. There were 100 or so youngsters who were made aware of EUSALP in Chambéry, in Kotaj in Slovenia, Salzburg, Austria, Mel in Italy, and in Schaan in Liechtenstein. So there's one challenge came to light, and the youngsters were really interested in this, and these are the holiday centres. What are holiday centres going to become? And there's going to be a lack of skill. It's impossible to recruit organisers, activity leaders in holiday centres. So some ideas were launched, and we really do have to continue to work along those lines. I just want to underline the online encounters which we were able to organize, and we were able to encourage them. They were every month, and they were very friendly and open, and it was an opportunity to meet different action groups working on transport, mobility, natural resources. Youngsters were able to have debates and really talk in concrete terms about putting a project together, such as setting up a supermarket in a sensitive nature zone where you need to protect the nature, and that was an opportunity to them to get to grips with a concrete situation and to take those very difficult decisions when you have to take ecology into account when you're deciding an economic project. And so we've got a whole group of youngsters who want to share their convictions with others, and I really would like to thank all the youngsters for their involvement. I'm just going to finish by saying that I can say that there's a new French member joining the group, Mr. Lionel Croissant, who is the deputy headmaster of a high school in Moussa, a tiny little commune in the Jura. It's a small commune, but we're talking about a high school there, so it's a top quality high school, well-known high school, which has a great reputation and which is working on a campus for mountain professions, working with Austria on that one. So I think this new member is very promising for the future of our work. Well, thank you very much, Margit, for being so concise, which is true to your reputation. I would now like to invite the Council of Education and Culture of the Autonomous Province of Trento, Mirko Bizesti, to round up the information on the youngsters' activities, because he's in charge of employment and education. Thank you very much, ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me to take the floor. It's great to be talking about youth with youth. So this is something which is great under the French presidency. Very often, too often, in fact, projects are rolled out for youngsters, but this time we are rolling out initiatives with youngsters. And so it's the perfect time for me to say good luck for all of your projects, and I would like to thank the French presidency for having involved youngsters. So the challenge is important, as many people have already pointed out this morning. In the Alps, for activity, for jobs, for youngsters. If youngsters have jobs, they'll be able to stay in the Alps, live with their families, and they will be able to construct a future in the Alps. So we have to roll up our sleeves to help them. So recently I participated in an event in my region where we were identifying different challenges today and comparing today's situation with the past. Now we have ideas about what we should do as a macro region, and we must work on training, education, and I'm just going to say a couple of words about the third working group, which is coordinated by my province, and we are focusing on education and training. Youngsters need concrete solutions. You've talked about mobility, transport, tourism, and sustainability in general. But I would invite you also to think about education and training. So what can EUSALP do for youngsters? Our working group has worked on 3 different pillars: training, for youngsters, but in cooperation with businesses, SMEs, which are typical of our territory. In June 2022, we are going to present a snapshot of our regions and identify best practices, good practices that should be developed in the future. For example, there's a sandwich course type of scheme which is going to be highlighted, and we can also develop a standardized system for developing skills and talents which are so important to our future. So we have to take stock of the reality in different states and regions and act in consequence of that. In Europe, for years, we've been talking about reciprocal recognition of diplomas and qualifications. So we really have to continue to work in Europe on that. A lot of work remains to be done. We have to identify the characteristics of our territories, of our Alps, and we have to take into consideration technical colleges, for example, and identify the need to recognize the qualification certificates in different countries. If we don't communicate on that front within Europe, then we're never going to solve these problems. Youngsters choose a type of training, a more practical, more technical type of education, and at the end of the day, they can encounter difficulties because their school certificate is just not recognized. So I would like to thank the French presidency for all of the work that it carried out to foster work on youngsters, but a lot remains to be done. Thank you very much. Yes, it's very interesting, the points that you have mentioned. So many initiatives have been launched in Europe in favor of training for education for youngsters in the mountains, getting them into the job market. But I note that the network of youth popular activities can work more deeply hand in hand with the working group number 3 to identify new projects for 2022. I really would like that young mountain dwellers can work with their own high schools, for example, their local high schools, not necessarily the elitist high schools. Although I did go to the rather elite schools myself, but I must say there are a lot of other high schools, technical colleges, for example, which train children in different activities, different spheres, which is really important. And I really do think that we have to continue the work which we started on those lines. I'm now, if you allow me, going to hand the floor back to Fabrice Pancook, just for 30 seconds to present the energy transition activity report. Well, 30 seconds are not enough, let me tell you from the start. But we talked about mobility, so we also have to talk about energy because the two subjects go hand in hand. And when we talk about our Alpine region, this subject is all about hydrogen and the way in which we can go through that energy transition in our environments. EUSALP focused in Chamonix on that. 80% of French actors in the sector were involved, although this subject goes well beyond that. So within the framework of the French presidency, in February, we identified the objective of working on the deployment of this new energy vector. And it really is a vector. It's not a source. It's a vector of energy. And so we had a task force of French, Italian, and German experts that worked to deploy hydrogen facilities throughout the Alps, first of all, to distribute it, and then ulteriorly, later on, in producing decarbonated energy. We want to have green energy. We have a political letter of intent concerning 9 regions. This was dated from June 2021, identifying 2 major projects. The first is creating a network of alpine players. I've already referred to this. And the second project is extending the Zero Emission Valley project, which involves funding to deploy solutions out in the field. So some strategic decisions will require a lot of funding from Europe, and we hope that we will be able to get that funding for interconnection in Europe. And I would just like to say that we have, on the 27th of January next in Brussels, in Hydrogen Europe project, we are going to have industrialists which are going to get together to talk about that. And that's all I've got to say. And it's an important subject, and we will come back to it in the workshops, and so I'll have more opportunities to give more detail. Well, thank you very much, Fabrice, for being so quick. I know that you can sum things up very nicely, but there you outdid yourself. So it just demonstrates the driving role that you've had in the region, in the field of transition energy. But I wanted to thank you for all of your hard work. And now I'm going to invite the director of Casa Clima to join us from the autonomous province of Bolzano-Bozen. The co-pilot of the energy project, Ulrich Santa, is going to give her message and be just as fast as Fabrice Panecoq was, I'm sure.
Yes, hello to everyone. I will try to be as brief as possible. Priority 5 reflects exactly what the mission of Action Group 9 is about, namely the promotion of energy efficiency and the use of renewable energies in all fields, in the private and in the public sector, in industry and production, from the energy refurbishment of our buildings up to the sustainable and low-emission mobility. So as we have heard before, during this French presidency, one of our key priorities in AG9 was and is still the topic of green hydrogen and the multiple roles it can also play in energy transition. Hydrogen is currently enjoying a lot of attention, as you know, throughout Europe. It can be considered a key element for sector coupling, for instance, and for the full development and integration also of renewables in our energy system. It can be used as a storage, it can be used as an alternative fuel, in particular in long-distance transportation and for heavy-duty vehicles, or also in aviation, as we have heard before. And it had also a very important and a very big potential in some hard to decarbonize sector, as for instance in steel production or in chemical industry. And as carbon neutrality is also one of the cross-sectoral policy we have defined at EUSALP level, we developed together with 5 other action groups a strategic initiative to this issue. And one of our activities regards the elaboration of a study on the opportunities, on the challenges, and perhaps also on the limitations in the field of hydrogen, in order to understand better where hydrogen contributes most to the decarbonization and to understand in which fields it makes most sense to use hydrogen. And this study will be available soon, and it should provide a useful and a valid basis for policymakers in the regions. On a political level, we've already heard it, we made an important step towards the implementation of a green hydrogen infrastructure by signing this memorandum of understanding for joint project development and for cooperation among these 9 EUSALP regions. And on the implementation level, we organized several expert workshops where we developed concepts on possible demonstration projects and also ideas for real-scale laboratories. A hydrogen focus group has been set up that is concretizing now just these days a joint Alpine Space project proposal on the deployment of green hydrogen solutions at local level. Another focus of the last 2 years was energy efficiency improvement in companies. As you know, enterprises account for more than 1/3 of Europe's energy consumption, and improving energy efficiency in enterprises therefore contributes significantly to the decarbonization of our economy. And of course, at the same time, it helps the companies to reduce their energy costs and to become more competitive. However, we know also that in particular small and medium-sized enterprises usually lack the necessary expertise or simply the time also to break down and to implement the potential savings in their own companies. This year, at the end of May, we closed the ARPA 2 project, CSAR, a project that aimed at addressing this potential of possible energy savings in the SMEs, providing the necessary knowledge, the tools, the solutions to companies, to energy advisors, and also to energy agencies. Energy and resource efficiency is in general, let's say, a flagship initiative in AG9, not only in companies, but also in the building sector, for instance, which is still one of the biggest consumers of energy and also of other resources, as we know. In a few other sectors, therefore, we can find a similar potential to reduce our CO2 emissions, and in a few other sectors, we can do it here already today, and we can do it also in a cost-efficient way, which is very important. So therefore, the last event of our 5th EUSALP Energy Conference will be dedicated to sustainable buildings, and in particular to the new European Bauhaus initiative. It will take place the same day as the kickoff event of the Italian presidency at the end of February in Bolzano, Bozen. What are maybe in brief the main topics we have already started to work on and we want to focus on the next year? We will decide to already mention hydrogen rollout and continue to work on the establishment of the EUSALP Energy Observatory. Another focus will be on the concept of energy communities in order, let's say, to strengthen this paradigm shift towards decentralized energy production and towards prosumer models and their operation by citizens, by companies, and by local authorities. We will further work on measures and programs to support, in particular, small municipalities in the process of energy planning and of energy management at local level. So these are, in short, the highlights of this priority axis and the major upcoming activities and priorities we set for the next years. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much. You summed that up very, very nicely. And I would like to thank you for the province of Bolzano-Bozen's involvement and your own personal involvement, which has been so important when we're addressing this problem of greenhouse gases in the Alps. I would just like to express a wish here. I would like the Euro-Alpine Energy Observatory will be created in 2022 with the support of the new Alpine Space program, as you said, and working on the entire Alpine region. I'm now going to hand the floor once again to Renaud Muselier, who's going to present an activity report in protecting biodiversity and managing natural risks. Thank you very much. Well, this is a region where we have been impacted with the storm called Alex. In the south, we've got all of our house, Liguria and all the rest. We have been impacted by these storms, and it reminds us how terrible and how real climate change can be. So For sustainable development, we are involved in pillar number 6 of the French biodiversity, is biodiversity and risk prevention. We have some very concrete results above and beyond the great challenges. So as far as the French-Italy Alcultura program, we have the BioDevelop program. We have rolled out ecological projects across the borders. It concerns everybody. This is a project which is a cornerstone of our strategy for biodiversity, which is one of the priority of the Italian presidency for 2022. The same second concrete point, coordination with the European Commission and the Alcatraz program. The Solidarity Fund in Europe was triggered for the populations that have been impacted. So millions of euros hadn't been planned, but it just means that we were able to, the EUSALP was able to get Europe to put its hand in its pocket. As well, we have had EUSALP approve a program to manage our forests sustainably. The work was all presented during the World Nature Congress, the IUCN, September 2021 in Marseille, and it will be a priority for the Italian presidency in 2022. So it really is a very practical question, and it goes from one country to the next within EUSALP. So that is the fruit of a work carried out in that field. Well, thank you very much, Renaud, for being so concise and for the very efficient policies which have been deployed to ensure that natural risk management would produce some efficient results, and that definitely was the case. So I'm thrilled about that. So it's we're all stronger together. United we stand, divided we fall, as they say. So now I am going to ask the Slovenian ambassador in France, Metka Ipavic, to say a few words about that report, because she's co-piloting this project. So, Madam Ambassadress, the floor is yours.
Gospod minister, najlepša hvala za besedo. Spoštovani člani in članice Generalne skupščine.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for handing me the floor. The green infrastructures are advantageous for all alpine regions. Using green infrastructures mean that we can combat climate change and that we can enhance resilience. This group of 7 countries promotes the alpine region, and we are sure that the green infrastructure is part and parcel of the sustainable development of the alpine region, and means that there is a liaison between country life, town life. Nature does not know any borders. And it's important to link the Alps to the Mediterranean Sea. Slovenia is combating climate change in order to contribute to resilience. We would like to reduce the risk of natural catastrophes, and we would also like to curb damage to culture and to the economy. We are aware of the solutions that can be used to reduce natural risks. I would like to underline good practices in forest management, forests which cover over 70% of the surface of Slovenia. We support sustainability in terms of water and in terms of forest management. We also combat flood. We want to heighten the awareness of people about flood risk, and we want to tell people how to combat these risks. In recent years, we've had to face a lot of challenges in the Alps. Over these past 2 years, we have, of course, had to live with the pandemic, and there's a new energy crisis on the horizon. However, faced with these challenges, faced with the pandemic, we have found our links being strengthened. We have been able to meet remotely, and it seems to be a good option. Experts have seen that we have moved up a level thanks to remote working. And there have been advantages, of course, also for the Alp region, which is not easy to get to. We have to ensure that this positive trend continues. We have to make it increase even. The pandemic has impacted regions in different ways. One can say that it's mostly the elderly who have taken the backlash of the health situation, but youngsters too have been impacted, mainly in terms of the economy. Slovenia is going to round off its presidency of the European Union, and many questions which have been raised today were on the agenda under Slovenia's presidency of the European Union. Resilience, to name but one. And 2022 will be devoted to youth. At the end of the year, France will take over the presidency of the European Union. And we are absolutely sure that France will be very successful during its presidency and will be as efficient as it has been presiding over EUSALP. Please allow me to thank you, finally, for your French presidency, and I wish you a lot of success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for these very precious information. I wanted to commend on the exemplary behavior of the Slovenia in the EUSALP, particularly on the theme of the environment, because I remember that as a former representative of the Alpine Convention, of the quality of the works that were done under the Slovenian presidency at the time. And I wanted to also testify, Madam Ambassadress, of the Slovenian contribution. So now I would like to invite the Director General for Tourism, Madame Ulrike Rosch-Keschmann, to tell us a few words on the risks of natural catastrophes. And of course, we're still running late. Thank you, Madam Director.
Vielen Dank. Ich darf mich hier noch einmal
Thank you. So again, I greet you from Vienna. Spaces of life, infrastructures. We have an increased need in terms of protection. We need to manage the risks to improve the space, which has a great value. This goal was always key to us, and that we mobilized on throughout all the Alpine regions. We have to add to this climate change, because it is now a phenomenon that is not going to stop at the border of a country. We need joint approaches, joint solutions. Many cross-border initiatives and projects develop these types of solutions, but in order to implement those solutions, emissions, we need a coordinated implementation to integrate the different levels, local level, etc. So in all the programs of promotion, we should take into account these needs. The Action Group 8, the presidency of Bavaria, what did it do to improve the management of risk and improve the fight against climate change? Well, the political recommendations on the management of natural hazards in forests, such as forest fires, how we can face that. Everything that was put together during the French presidency, there is a list of results that were obtained and the major initiatives for climate change in alpine regions. There is a platform on internet which takes stock of all the initiatives that were conducted. Namely, we insist on the role of youngsters. We need to make them aware. As a very young age, it's very important to make sure that they are aware. So we try to explain to the young, and we give them a simulation of floods, for example, and that's what the Action Group 8 tries to present, and present a project of urban planning by taking into account the natural hazards. So we try to have tools to frame some policies that take into account the necessary resilience to mitigate the effects of climate change in models to assess the risks. And I think that with all these initiatives, we are on the right track. Thank you very much. The director of the Department for the Land Payer will intervene. Herr Director.
Sehr geehrter Präsident Muselier, sehr geehrte
Dear
Damen
Mr.
und
President,
Herren, aus Respekt vor der
ladies and
französischen
gentlemen,
Präsidentschaft und aus Liebe zur französischen Sprache würde ich meine
with all my
Intervention
respect
gerne auf
to
Französisch
France and
halten.
my language and my love for the French language, I would like to express myself in French. Bavaria, I would like to thank you.
Vous avez fait de ces deux sujets un certain mainstream alpin. Ça nous plaît beaucoup. Merci, merci beaucoup pour ça.
Thank you very much. Regarding the implementation, we believe that two things are key. The first one, we must benefit from the European programs. The subject of environment is fully integrated in these programs, and even more so since the period 2021-2022. And let's be careful. The European Union obliges us to follow a particular rate of emissions. It is up to us to capitalize on this potential. We need to ask for subsidies. We must look for a positive effect for our partners, economic partners, and with the local actors, for example, the people own the forests who can do it on the ground. Bavaria would like to, is very close to promoting this type of initiative. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Director, for your very good use of the French language, but also for being very quick. and efficient. What I would like at this stage, and after having heard all the speakers, is I think we should really encourage the full implementation of the contribution of EUSALP to this famous Congress of the IUCN that you referred to, Renaud, on these issues of multifunctionalities of alpine forest via the action groups. And at this stage, and since we're talking about natural hazards, I would like to thank the European Commission to have allocated this solidarity fund on the activation of the French government. And after we're being requested to by the PACA in the favor of these territories hit by the storm Alex, and to the benefit of all the alpine partners for the areas that were impacted by the storm. I give myself the floor, I'm afraid, as I am in charge of within the French presidency to present an activity report on governance. I'm going to try to be extremely synthetic. I would like to affirm that governance of EUSALP has been comforted many times. The priorities of states and regions have been clearly defined and better translated into European programs for the time frame 2020-2021 than before, because thanks to the creation of 4 action groups that bridge together the reports from experts of EUSALP. I'm talking about energy transition with hydrogen, the sustainable mobility, innovation, and natural hazards. Also, the cooperations between city and mountains, city and valleys have always been highlighted on each event. And there's been a synergy between among the alpine cities. The macro-regional cooperation has opened up more than ever to civil society and to the actors from the industry or the civil society. And this is particularly here where there's been a creation of the Youth Council, which is an important milestone. And I really am very happy that this corporation has become more and more professional in the recent years with the technical trainings, with animation teams from the French presidency, the team from Lombardia, and I would like to thank the European Commission for its precious help and support for this structure. I am also very happy to be in a position to submit to the approval of the General Assembly a number of decisions that are very important in terms of governance. It starts with the rules of procedure of our Assembly to comfort its political aspects, its role of a steering committee, and to make its functioning more smooth. So I formally ask you if there are if there are nobody against, the rules of procedure will be formally adopted. So if all meetings went that well, it would be wonderful. I think it's because I am conducting it in a brilliant way. Is that what my neighbor is telling me? He's going to ask me for money very soon. When the President Muselier says thank you, it means more. So I would like to reaffirm that the macro-regional cooperation is only relevant if it's carried from a political standpoint by sharing responsibilities and by having a rotating presidency. France was in a very uncomfortable situation in fall 2020 with the candidacy of Switzerland and Liechtenstein falling apart. And after months of uncertainties that were very painful for us, France took its responsibility and accepted to renew its presidency for a second year in a row in 2021 at the request of the European Commission and the Alpine partners. The situation was supposed to remain exceptional, and because everybody has to take their own responsibility. So I would like to thank warmly our Italian friends with the region of Trentino Adige, Alto Adige, and the two autonomous provinces that form it for their candidacy that is saving grace for us. And I would like to give the floor to the president of Aldo Compaccia, who's with the province of Alto Adige, and also Mirgo Bizesti, to take the floor and tell us about their motivations and their enthusiasm to take over the presidency of EUSALP in 2022. Mr. President Compaccia, please.
Merci. Bonjour.
Thank you.
Buongiorno. Good morning, guten Tag.
Hello, everyone.
Sì, io dividerò il mio intervento con il collega Bisesti solo per spiegare brevemente i
So
motivi della
I'm
nostra
going to
candidatura.
speak with my colleague Marco Bizesti to explain the reasons for our candidacy. I will speak in German because we are a multi-language region.
Also zunächst einmal ist es so, dass wir ja eine Region
First
im
of
Herzen
all,
der Alpen sind.
we
Trentino,
are a region
Südtirol,
in the heart
wir
of the
empfinden
Alps,
uns als
Trentino and the
solche
South
und
Tyrol.
sind
For
täglich
us,
konfrontiert mit den
this is how we
Herausforderungen
look at
der
it. And
Bergregionen.
every day
Wir sind
we
es
are
auch gewohnt,
facing the challenge to
überregional
be an alpine
zusammenzuarbeiten.
region.
Wir tun dies
It is business as
unserer
usual
recht
to have
erfolgreich im Rahmen
cooperation
der
beyond
Europaregion
our
Tirol,
region.
Südtirol,
We do
Trentino.
this
Und wir haben
successfully.
uns
We
deshalb
have a
auch mit entsprechender
partnership with
Überzeugung
Tyrol,
eingesetzt
South
im
Tyrol,
Rahmen der
Trentino, and
makroregionalen
an
Strategie
European
Alpen, auch im Rahmen
initiative
der verschiedenen
as far
Arbeitsgruppen,
as the
einmal
macro-regional
als
strategy
Autonomous
goes
Südtirol,
with
auch
EUSALP.
das Trentino
We
genauso auch
committed
als Europaregion
ourselves,
Tirol, Südtirol, Trentino.
South Tyrol
Wir
as
haben
an
uns in besonderer
autonomous
Weise auch dem Thema
region.
der Nachhaltigkeit verschrieben.
And
Südtirol hat
the
ein
topic of
ehrgeiziges
sustainability is very important to
Strategieentwurf,
us.
wie wir
In the
einen
South Tyrol,
partizipativen
we've
Prozess
developed a
ständig
very ambitious strategy.
weitergestalten, wo wir die großen Fragen der
Within a
Mobilität, der
process of
Entwicklung,
participation, we
der Wirtschaft
try
hin zu einer
to solve
Kreislaufwirtschaft, der
the
Frage des
major issues of
Energiemanagements, gerade in den
mobility,
Alpen,
make sure
die
that
Nutzung
there's
der
a circular
Wasserkraft, aber auch der
economy,
anderen
that
alternativen
there's
Energieträger,
energy
neben der Abkehr
management,
von fossilen Brennstoffen bis hin
and to
zur
use
Frage
hydrogen
der Abwehr einer Abwanderung aus den Tälern und
and leave
Berggebieten,
the traditional
nach
fuels
nachhaltigen,
behind and
resilienten
move on
Entwicklung
to
auch in
more
Bezug auf natürlich
sustainable
die
resources, to have a resilient
Klimaveränderungen,
development,
die ohnehin stattfinden werden, auch in
and
Bezug
to
auf
know how to
Anpassungsstrategien.
act in front of the climate
Wir freuen
change
uns,
and develop
dass wir diese
strategies.
Verantwortung übernehmen dürfen.
We are very
Wir
looking
wollen
forward
das mit
to
größtem Engagement
take
tun.
over this
Ich freue mich
responsibility.
dann auch, wenn es gelingen sollte,
We want to
möglichst
do
viele
it,
auch
and
Teilnehmer
we are committed to
zusätzlich
it.
zu
We
den
hope that
Veranstaltungen
we are
nach
successful
Bozen
and
beziehungsweise nach
we
Trient
can
zu bekommen.
invite
Wir hoffen,
many
dass es auch
participants
wieder
to
in Präsenz
Ulten, to
möglich
Triente,
sein sollte. Und wir wollen natürlich einen enormen
and
Beitrag leisten.
that
Im
we
Sinne
have
einer
soon in-person meetings.
Bewerbung, die auch
So
Ausdruck
would like
eines
to
Bottom-up-Prinzips sein
make
soll.
sure
Die
that
Regionen als Gestalter,
we understand
wir
that our
sind es gewohnt, dank
presidency
unserer
is going to be
Autonomie
bottom
selbst
up
Dinge zu
from
gestalten,
the
auch selbst
regions who
aktiv zu
develop
werden.
the
Ich glaube,
action.
das ist auch
We
der
are
Sinn dieser
used to
makroregionalen
being
Strategie,
actors
dass die Regionen
ourselves,
tatsächlich Akteure
and
sind.
this is
Natürlich in
how this
Zusammenarbeit mit den
macro-regional
Staaten,
strategy
Abstimmung
is
desselben
going to
unter dem
work.
Dach des
The regions have to be
gemeinsamen
actors
europäischen
by
Hauses. Und in diesem
cooperating with
Sinne
the
freue ich mich
states,
auf eine gute
and
Zusammenarbeit,
all
auf eine
that under the
erfolgreiche
umbrella
Präsidentschaft
of
gemeinsam
Europe.
mit dem Trentino in der
I am
Hoffnung,
delighted
dass es dann auch
for
Nachfolge
the
geben wird, dass auch die Kantone,
presidency
dass auch die anderen
full of
Regionen
success,
dann
and we
bereit sein
hope
werden,
that
ihre
the other
Verantwortung
regions
wahrzunehmen.
will
Vielen Dank.
accept to assume the responsibility of such a presidency. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to rebound on what Mr. Compacho said, with the momentum starting from our territory, which accepted this presidency with a lot of enthusiasm that characterizes our territory. As Arno Compacho said, we have a communitary spirit, and we share it throughout our autonomous provinces. Our reality, our region, is a small Europe in the middle of the Alps. So we support this presidency and a lot of excitement with a bottom-top approach, inviting everyone, including the youth, around a macro-regional strategy. Some important aspects are linked to our territory, to the fact that we are two autonomous provinces in a particular regional context. We have different languages and difference in history as well, with our history as well. For social reasons, we're united in a reinforced cooperation. And I believe that this cooperation will get more strength. What we do within the Alpine Arc, we're in Nice here, and it goes all the way to Slovenia by crossing all the Alps. This is fundamental for the future, not only of EUSALP, but for the whole of Europe. The process that unites us must be shared, must be participative, and be bottom-up. It's the same approach than the one that we followed on the theme that we mentioned before. We've approved the strategy for sustainable development. That's the framework of the Agenda 2030. Our province has been congratulated by the OECD as a very novel process that gets everybody involved, including the young ones. Getting them on board, having them participate in the making process, as we did for the Youth Council. These decisions can be a key of success for the sustainability of our projects. The role of regions in this context is absolutely fundamental. So we share the feelings of the province of Bolzano and the South Tyrol in terms of environment. We have another major challenge that we're facing, is the one of the gap between cities and the territories that are more isolated in the mountain, because some are difficult to reach. You know very well the difficulties with the infrastructures and the digital connections. These are the themes that we need to work on, and we hope to be working with you on that with the EUSALP strategy. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, both of you. To conclude on the words of President Compacho, you are very convinced and enthusiastic with this presidency, and I am very happy to submit for approval this Italian candidacy. Italian and singular at the same time within the European space for territory and language factors that represent very well what Europe is about. So is anybody against? And if anybody is against, I will not keep my cool. No, everybody is approved. So the Italian candidacy is approved, and I would like you to applaud. I would like to send a message to all the delegations who are here in the room. We have to take a stand very quickly on the presidency of 2023 of EUSALP. I want to insist on that because it is important that the Italian presidency works with a peace of mind, knowing ahead who's going to be the next presidents. So it's good to thank them, but it's also good to make sure that somebody is going to take on the presidency afterwards. I don't think there should be any issues there because EUSALP is very attractive. EUSALP has received the candidacy of the region Grand Est, the Greater East, as an observer. I'm sorry, it was aligned with its participation in the program Interreg Alpine Space. It was also the wish of Commissaire Ferreira to have an alignment within all the different areas. So I am delighted to see today the Greater East region come, and I would like to give the floor to Christian de Bève, who's the president of this Great East region. I think are you in the room? No, you are. I am here. I am in the room. You were wearing a mask earlier on, so that's why I didn't recognize you. Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, presidents, Madam General Delegate, I thank you for giving me the floor and the occasion to present the reasons why I want to work with the EUSALP. It's comes from 3 regions, the Greater East region. It has a border with Switzerland, and we have a lot of coordination projects with them. The territory of Alsace is close to the Arc-en-Alpes, Strasbourg and Mulhouse, 2 major cities, welcome innovation centers and high-level universities, are closer to Bern and Zurich and Stuttgart and Innsbruck than to Paris. From its beginning, Alsace has participated in the Interreg program. Our territory has not been integrated into the micro-regional strategy of EUSALP, and we deplore it. Maybe EUSALP was more turned towards the proximity territories, whereas the Greater East region has shown a lot of potential and competences that I will go back to in a moment. Our request to be integrated as an observer is not only linked to the recommendation of the European Commission to pursue our participation into the Interreg Alpine Space Program. It's one of the reasons, but not the main one. Since Alsace was integrated in the Greater East region, we, as for EUSALP, we are involved in all kinds of energy transition, and our strategic ambitions are also within a macro-regional context. Many opportunities of collaboration can be identified. The stakes of development or optimizing new corridors in Europe with the reinforcement of new knowledge and new ticketing and platforms, renewal of our waterways, and the energy transition such as hydrogen that we need to think of in transnational way. The climate challenges invite us to think about our mountain territories. In the Greater East, if I look at it, we have the chain of the Vosges and the Black Forest that is bordering. So we could collectively tackle the challenges that are facing these mountain regions to talk about agriculture, circular economy, tourism 4 seasons a year, preservation of biodiversity, and mitigation of climate change. For all these reasons, we thank you to accept us as an observer. within the governance of EUSALP and give us the opportunity to pursue our future exchanges with you. I want to thank the presidency of EUSALP and the minister, Mr. Giraud, for the support he has provided us. Thank you very much, Mr. Regional Councillor. What I suggest now is, of course, we submitted to formal approval. There's an intervention from our friends. I can't see the colors. I'm colorblind, so I apologize for all the national flags. But so yeah, a colorblind minister, that can happen. You have the floor. Thank you, Minister. I would like to introduce myself. I'm the General Consul of Germany, and my colleagues of Bavaria, Berlin regret not to be with us. And Bart Wittener asked me to say a few words on the commitment of the Greater East region in EUSALP. I will speak German now, if you allow. We are delighted of the candidacy of the Greater East region for EUSALP. The cooperation with France and with the neighboring region is something that is very close to our heart. It is very important for the Baton-Ghent, the bordering region of the Rhine, is a region that is very involved. If it is integrated in the EUSALP, it will create new synergies, particularly with the Interreg project, and it's very well aligned with all the trans-border corporations that link the Baden-Württemberg and the Greater East region. We are exchanging on this topic, and we have a lot of subjects that, like digital transition, culture, training, mobility, sustainability. This cooperation is very important. And we've seen that not only at the occasion of the pandemics, the fact that the Greater East becomes an observer in EUSALP, it means that synergies are taking shape. There have already been cooperations along the Rhine River with other partners. It's going to be very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much also for that message from the Baden-Württemberg county. Yes, when we were looking for a party to take over from us as our presidency, we were identifying a region that would be very keen on Europe and interested in this subject. Okay, we've finished the report section, so now let's sprint on to what we were supposed to be doing at 11 o'clock, so we're 1 hour behind schedule, which is a big delay. So this second part is all about the shared priorities to be deployed in 2022. I am going to hand the floor to the Minister responsible for educational culture in the Trento province, who's going to talk about initiatives that the Italian presidency will be undertaking. So if you'd like to take the floor, it's all yours. Okay, let me just give a little aside here. Our colleagues have just put forward some proposals concerning our strategy for the coming year. We have observer status here. I think it really is very important for macro-regional strategy And the fact of being here, of exchanging our good practices, can only be good for everybody. So I've been really interested to listen to what everyone's had to say, because by strengthening our strategy, our macro-regional plan will be a success. And we have seen the results which have been chalked up to now during these 2 very difficult years. Yet the French presidency has come up with some fabulous results. Now, what are the priorities for our strategy in 2022? Well, we have, of course, drawn up a document. You've received that document. And it lists 9 action areas. I won't go into detail on those 9 subjects again. You've read the document. There are some points, however, that are worth highlighting. First of all, this is the action number 1 pertaining to innovation in our ecosystem and possible networks between our research centres and universities. We are in a difficult region in terms of mobility. However, we do have a great spirit of initiative, as a spirit of innovation in the field of education and training, higher education, and research centres, of course. And this is an activity which is ongoing in a European spirit, and bringing our research centres and universities together in a network enables them to look forward to the future and innovate. Another point on our plan pertains to action number 3, a regional area for education, not only for universities, but also for the education of younger people. So we need to draw up a common reference frame for our countries so that we can carry out future initiatives. Action number 5 now, pertaining to digital technologies. So we have different infrastructures in our territories, and that is the very foundation for developing our regions, taking into consideration all of the subjects that have already been brought up, the difficulties that have been highlighted. In terms of the pandemic, we've learned to work differently. We've learned to have different relationships with people. And digital technologies are absolutely key to this. So we have to think about networks, infrastructures, the tools, the equipment that are all necessary to further development of these technologies. And then point number 6, natural resources and cultural resources. The autonomous province of Trento, under the presidency of Italy, will draw into our cultural training to really showcase natural resources, to protect the landscape and the cultural panorama that we have. So we have to work on that. Everything to do with nature has to be showcased. And we must look for a new type of modernity. Thank you very much for your words, which They're very interesting. So you've talked about the past and you talked about the future as well. So we're all very enthusiastic. So that's great news about the initiatives which you're going to roll out in the name of Italy and the two autonomous provinces and your regions. We are now going to have some communications. Given we're an hour late, if someone has already taken the floor, I've just crossed them off the list. Apologies for my brutality, but I've just crossed you off the list. And so I think we're only going to hear from people who have not yet had a chance to speak out. So first of all, we're going to hear from Alessia Rosolén, who is Regional Councillor of Friuli Venezia Giulia. And I think she's she's being beamed in. Hello.
Intervengo in italiano, ovviamente.
I'm going to speak in Italian. First of all, I would like to thank all of the staff in our departments, all of the staff in the Friuli Venezia Giulia region. A lot of people have worked hard. It's a unique region because of its geography. So we give on to the Adriatic Sea, and we're in a perfect position for all strategies pertaining to this region. Yes, there's very little to add, in fact, to what we've already heard. We've had some rich exchanges, some rich contributions. Our region would like to thank the French presidency for being so tenacious, for all of its efforts that have provided shared answers to problems that needed to be addressed on the macro-regional scale. Of course, we know how fast the world is changing due to COVID and due to climate change also. So we have to act quickly in face of these challenges, and that in itself has strengthened European governance in terms of decarbonation and ecological transitioning. And I am confident that the Italian presidency will continue the work of the French presidency. And we really do have to focus our efforts on helping businesses in our region recover after the pandemic. And I would add that the macro region should become the first alpine region with zero carbon emissions if we are to reach the decarbonation goals that we have set for 2050 in Europe. So we really need to be committed to that. We need to invest in national resilience, but of course, with our European hat on, we've got all kinds of programs working towards 2027. There's a new presidency that will support the development of all technologies linked to the use of green hydrogen, which is a broad theme that will have an impact on several fields: energy, environment, transport, industry, research and training. In terms of research, I'm perfectly in agreement with the person who spoke out before me, saying how it is important to find a point of convergency between research and productive activities. As a region, we are a strong innovator for 2022, and we want to identify new solutions for using and storing green hydrogen. And this process obviously involves research establishments, both regional, national, and international, that are based in our region. There's a lot of work that needs to be carried out for programming the different projects. I'm not going to talk about that now, but our region is a strong believer in building a strategic cooperation platform within EUSALP on the questions of ecology and hydrogen. And we have already started working together with other countries such as Croatia and Slovenia. The idea would be to create a hydrogen valley which runs through several countries. So it would cover the region, the whole territory, and it would run for many years. Within EUSALP, our region is involved in 6 working groups. We have worked with Piedmont, Lombardy, to sign a protocol for hydrogen and sustainable mobility. The Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes and the Bolzano province really did defend and stand up for this initiative, and I hope that everybody will be on board and that we will be able to draw up a shared agenda to reinforce local hydrogen systems and to construct interregional value chains. The Italian presidency of EUSALP will be a driving force in terms of political collaboration and initiatives that need to be taken in order to optimize the use of available funds. Next May, the Friuli-Venezia Giulia region will be hosting the Digital Arts Conference 2022, promoted by an action group and by the European Union. So there will be discussions between all players. Digital technologies is another subject that we have been working on a lot. It's important to make transport more efficient, but also for developing the whole fabric of SMEs to make them more productive and to give the population greater access to services. We've got smart cities and smart villages, and so the Friuli region is committed to promoting digital transformation within businesses by using the Europe Digital Programme. We hope that the Digital Alps conference will create a great platform for interaction around the Alps between the different digital hubs in Europe. 2022 will be the year of youth. And as Minister in charge of all subjects pertaining to youngsters, I really do hope that youngsters will be increasingly involved in all development policies throughout our region to develop a greener, more connected and smarter alpine region that we can leave to our future generations. Thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to hand the floor to, you're supposed to take 1 minute for this session, 2 if you have something really serious to say. I'm going to hand the floor to Luciano Caveri, who is one of the founders of the macro-regional policy and is Minister of Valle d'Aosta in charge of education. So Luciano, you have 1 minute, perhaps 2, in which to say everything. Well, I'm not going to take up too much time. Hello, everybody. We are surrounded by mountains here. You're by the seaside. So, those who are talking about the macro view don't like too much bureaucracy. So I would like to say how important water is. Water is a great source of wealth, but it's really threatened by climate change. Everyone's saying this, but I really do want to point it out again. We've got hydroelectricity for one thing, so we need to use green hydrogen. Everybody's getting involved in that. But I think there are those who have hydroelectric power. I would like to point out to the Assembly in the Alps that there's a lot of competition in terms of hydroelectricity. There are calls for tenders for hydroelectricity. That means oil companies and investment funds. Whereas, in my opinion, this is a wealth which must remain for the mountain dwellers and for alpine populations. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you very much, Luciano, for your very short but very politically important message. Okay, let's not get into further depth on that. I'm now going to ask Mr. Panayotis Potelitis to please take the floor. I think it's from this person is speaking from Liechtenstein, unless I'm mistaken. In whichever language you choose, sir.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, Exzellenzen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, bedanke mich sehr für die Einladung und für die Organisation der diesjährigen Generalversammlung des Jahresforums. Speziell möchten wir uns bei der französischen Präsidentschaft für die Übernahme eines zweijährigen EUSALP-Vorsitzes unter erschwerten Bedingungen während der Covid-19-Pandemie bedanken.
Being the president over for 2 years of Syria. And yes, it was a difficult time, and I would like to thank Italy for taking over the presidency as of next year. Thank you for all of those activity reports which you've delivered this morning, which reflect what's going on in the Alps. The Alps is the best linked region in Europe through culture, languages, economy. We cooperate very closely. Liechtenstein is sets great store by that. It's a small area, it's Liechtenstein in the Alps. We need to have joint efforts to combat climate change, to work towards a sustainable development. All of these subjects are going to become so very much more important for the Alpine area. So it is reflected in activities that are planned for 2022 and the priorities that have been defined. They correspond to the priorities that have been identified by Liechtenstein in its government program. It's all a question of sustainability. Sustainability is what children and youngsters have in mind all over the planet. We need to make sure that this subject has to be addressed when we're with youngsters. So we've got the fact that you've founded a youth council in EUSALP is a great source of joy for us. We're really satisfied to see that there are many projects that are going to go forward, concrete projects, virtual projects as well.
In Bezug auf die Ziele 2022
and it all helps to explain to the population what EUSALP is, what our priorities are for 2022. And we have seen that in terms of governance, there's a predefined series which have been identified thanks to the new presidency. Yes, of course, we have to ensure that all our efforts are channeled into sustainability. How can all of these goals be achieved? We believe that in the executive committee, these questions will be addressed through green lenses, and we are going to participate constructively in these debates, and we will share our point of view. Liechtenstein will continue to be committed, so we'd like to thank the French presidency once again for its huge success, and we would like to thank Italy for its future efforts and wish it the best of luck for their future presidency. Thank you very much. So, are you saying that you're going to be a candidate for 2023? That's why I was giving you a little bit more time than the others. I hope you will think about that. Apologies to those people who haven't been able to speak. I'm going to move right now to representatives from the Youth Council. Eva Duzak is going to say a few words. She's going to talk about the priorities there. Which are the most important priorities for you, Eva? Off you go. Dear members of the General Assembly, I am happy that during these uncertain times we have an opportunity to be here in the flesh. I really am thrilled that 2 members of the Youth Council have been able to participate in the General Assembly. The Youth Council has set itself some ambitious goals. We want to work on subjects pertaining to the economy, mobility, and energy in the Alpine region. But we, above all, want our activities to foster inclusion of youngsters so that they are active players in their environment. Youngsters can become a bridge between generations. Modern technologies have become even more important due to the COVID crisis. A good internet connection means that we can share information, which brings youngsters in the Alps closer. But let's not forget that something which might be to us taken for granted is not always accessible in the Alps. That can be one of the problems that the Youth Council will tackle. We have seen that remote meetings is not enough. The meetings in Innsbruck and in Gorica enabled us to establish our operational rules for our Youth Council for the future. The digital environment cannot create a top-quality environment on its own. We really do need live meetings as well. Our Youth Council has been around for 6 months now. The current members of the Youth Council are proud to be members of the Youth Council for this first mandate. This council has been created by youngsters for youngsters. If our initiative is successful, then we will do even more work in our working groups. The priorities of our group have already been presented to you this morning, and you will see on the desk in front of you some documents. We want to contact the action groups, and we want to stay in touch with the Italian presidency. What that we've seen and heard so far has all been very positive, and we're really optimistic about the future. So we hope that we can be a bridge between different players in the Alpine region. We'd like to thank everyone who has expressed themselves this morning. Madame Mélanie Blanchard, for example. We'd also like to thank the French presidency. We'd like to thank our national coordinators for their support. We are delighted to work with the Italian presidency next year. Let's not forget that the members of the Youth Council are all very young. High school students, university students. It's a very varied group. So the work that we carry out takes up some of our free time, in fact. We all have other activities, our studies, for example. And so on this point, I would like to underline that working with you is so important to us, and I'd like to thank you for that. I suggest we give the youngsters a round of applause. Because we are hearing the future speak to us here and now, the future of the Alps. So thank you very much, both of you, for coming to be with us and to deliver those important messages. Now I say we move on to our conclusion, and I am going to ask President Muselier to say a couple of words. A few words, okay. 2 years summed up in a couple of words. The context has been rather difficult. 7 countries, 48 regions, 80,000 inhabitants, a European macro region. Over the past 2 years, we've been at the helm, and I'd like to thank Madame Marie Dufy, who is president of Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, and we also have a representative of Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, who have really sweated it out with other countries and regions of France. We've had 44 events, 74 projects underway. So we've spoken a lot. We're behind. I'm going to have to go very, very quickly, of course. It's difficult to sum all of this up, but I'm going to head to the most salient points first. Youth. And I think that that's been pretty obvious. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for co-steering this meeting this morning, and also setting up the Youth Council within EUSALP. I think that's very important. Second chapter, transport mobility. And here we have got a label for a second strategic era, which will enable us to incorporate them into the European Union structures so that they can benefit from European funding, thanks to the EMEE mechanism. So I think that that is very pragmatic. And PACA has carried out a survey on alternative fuels, electricity, gas, hydrogen, throughout EUSALP, and everyone can delve into that. We've also got that joint declaration on rail travel, road as opposed to a rail, that is being adopted. And in 2021, European Year of the Rail, then I think that was a very important project. There's biodiversity and hazards now. France and Italy work together on that to develop this project, the Solidarity Fund for the European Union for the Alex storm showed that it was a very concrete solution, and then there has been operational contribution to the sustainable management of forests. and a lot of work has been done there. 9 priorities for the Italian presidency. I'm going to let them present that. I think that's all I have to say. I think we've travelled our road. It was a difficult road. The situation was very complex. I'd like to thank all of the countries that were involved and all of the regions that were so involved as well. And if you allow me, I think I could say that we have managed to do something really concrete and practical. A final chapter, validation by the European Commission of the Technical Secretariat, which means that EUSAP can have a permanent office with the Secretariat, and we have got an office in Milan, so that means that we can move forward even more efficiently. Thank you very much, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and take care of yourselves. Let's not forget to say that. Take good care of yourself. We've been through 2 years of hell. We've survived that. Get your vaccinations up to date. Take care of yourself, and you could be ill if you need to be, but take care. Thank you for coming to Nice, and just to round off this lovely year, and I'd like to wish you a fabulous 2022.
Merci beaucoup, Renaud.
Thank you very much, Renaud. I now give the floor to Mr. Jean-Pierre Alquin, who's the head of unit of macro regions within the region. Thank you, Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, President of Regions, friends of EUSALP. I would like to start my presentation by greeting and commending the work of the French presidency, which was done since the kickoff in Lyon in very difficult circumstances. The French presidency and its team has done an exceptional job. We've heard it many times. We've heard all the action groups highlighting all the work that was done over the last 2 years. Just one point I would like to say is the manifesto that was prepared by the French presidency that served as the framework of this action. You may have noticed, but I am combining 2 interventions. I'm going to talk about the conclusions of the General Assembly and also of the future challenges of the strategy. And I would like to say that from the point of view of Brussels, the major challenge of EUSALP is to be up to the challenges as it is perceived from Brussels. EUSALP was created ahead of its time. EUSALP was a precursor of the priorities of the Commission of Ursula von der Leyen. And based on the works of the Council, EUSALP is now perceived as a tool allowing to accelerate these priorities. And I think that's what we've heard so far. If we think of the Green Pact, we've talked about energy transition, green hydrogen, sustainable transport, managing climate risks, sustainable tourism, preservation of the natural environment. So all of this is at the heart of the priorities of the Green Pact. What we should not forget, and we cannot underrate the capital of the region of EUSALP, is that we go way beyond this Green Act. It's about total revamping of our economy to make sure that it benefits to everyone, to contribute as much as possible into the energy transition. Maybe some initiatives have not been highlighted so far, but very important, such as the smart villages. To unleash this capital and this potential, we see 2 major axes. The first one is the alignment of European countries on the priorities of EUSALP. The funds, we've talked about the alignment of the program Interreg Alpen Space, and also the contribution of the transnational, transborder programs must play in this respect. We have a whole Interreg team in Brussels and coordination platforms. last point that we didn't mention, but that we have in mind since the last week of the strategy of the macro-regional strategies, is the contribution that can bring to this effort the programs in direct and indirect management managed by the European Commission. We could see that the direction of climate has adopted some tenders that contribute to the green goal of the European Union. We are comforted by the creation of financial networks, which should favor this alignment, the European funds, with the goals of EUSALP. On governance, we've spoken about the importance of the technical secretariat that is being put in place. It's a joint effort carried by the French presidency and the future Italian presidency, but carried by the candidates who wanted to implement this technical secretariat. There are two reasons why this secretariat has a key role to play. We have all been very happy to listen to the young, to Thomas, to Eva, and to see that the Council of Youth has been acted. We were impressed to hear youngsters pass on a very structured message, a message of the young towards the the decision makers. It's a very important step, and we can see here the beginning of what will be, in English, the voice of the change makers, the voice of the young who will be the actors of change, because the goals that we're talking about, the Green Pact, is in an horizon from 20 to 30 years. The second point that is very important when we talk about macro-regional strategies is the political anchoring. These initiatives are cooperation between governments. There are very few of them in the European Union, and they could see the light because of the political will. And that's a very important point. We've started to think also on how to reinforce the role of actors of the General Assembly who have a democratic mandate in the steering of the EUSALP. And we could see how important it is for EUSALP to be proactive and adjust to the challenges of tomorrow. It's a very important point that needs to be continued. Another project that needs to be continued is the rotation of presidencies. We've just had the presidency. We thank France for having done that. And we would like to go back on the autonomous provinces of Alto Adige and Trentino. I know they volunteered for the next presidency. And for the strategy of EUSALP, such as other macro-regional strategies, we should establish a planning of the presidencies that could be done in advance, which is another way to reinforce the political will in that macro-regional strategy. I would like to conclude on this governance issue, which is very important, by reminding you that the communication team is at the service of the strategy to make sure that these efforts can bear fruits and make sure that the macro-regional strategies are seen from Brussels as a way to translate European initiatives and give them a local anchoring and a democratic voice. Thank you very much. I suggest that we give Mr. Halkin a round of applause. I really wanted to thank you because your words are very important. And to replace the political will at the heart of the territorial anchoring is very important. I think the political will is the only way to maintain some stability in the structures that we create. I liked your words on the change makers as well, because I think that's very important for our Alpine region. I would like to thank you also personally, because you're always very available every time we need you, and we need the services of your unit. So I'm not going to make a formal conclusion, but I would like to. I'm not going to remain silent, but I would like to tell you that we have lived 2 exceptional years with the French presidency of EUSALP. On a personal note, it was a very peculiar experience because I am old enough. I'm the same age than President Muselier, so you understand that we've been around for a while, but for many years as a parliamentary president of this region and first vice president of the European Association of the Local Authorities of the Mountains, after having chaired the National Council of Mountain. Now I'm in charge of territories and rural affairs, but I am the only one to have jurisdiction over the policy of mountains, which is a decree. So I need to add the word mountain under my title, not because it's important, because it's where I live, it's where I'm from, and it's very important to me. As the President Muselier said, let's hope that we don't end up with COVID when we're both vaccinated. With this success of the French presidency, but all the works that were done by all the European partners that are involved in EUSALP, we need today to pursue our mission. The creation of this technical structure is very important because it will be a way to support the governance and to help the presidencies, and will become more sustainable over time. I insist on this idea of have a rotating presidency. I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but that's the way I am. And I must say that we should not be, for lack of will, it all, drops dead or falls back into the difficulties that we have experienced that were, of course, linked to the COVID, but not only. We need to have this perspective. So I would like to thank the French regions with whom we worked for 2 years, the commitment of the elected officials of the 3 regions, Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, Rhône-Alpes, and Provence-Côte d'Azur. It is a real collegial presidency that we've had. Sometimes politics became very annoying when you measure the confidence with the number of votes that you get. Here, it was very different. It was very smooth, and I would like to thank you for that, because smoothness means being more productive. I would like to thank Christiane Barré, who's had many lives and who could moderate with her team, the vice commissioner, and all the people who are teams. So I want to thank you for having promoted this coordination, regional coordination. So I want you to give them a round of applause. So it was either a round of applause, or I was going to sing to you the song Applause by Lady Gaga. So you're lucky I didn't. So now I would like to express very strong interest for these Italian duo for the presidency. I have origins across the border. in Italy, which means that I'm in total trust, but also I'm completely convinced of the commitment of Italy, which was always the founding fathers of the mountain. At the time where we had the ANEM, the Association of Elected Officials in the Mountains, there were only 2 countries at the time who would carry out some political policies. And I'm very happy to see you now taking it over. I have full trust in you, and since we're passing the baton, I would like the conclusion of this meeting to be in the words of our Minister, Mirko Bizesti, Counselor for Education. Thank you, Mr. Minister. We have a lot of responsibilities for the Italian presidency, but of course we are absolutely ready to take it on. And we would like to thank the representative of the European Commission, who said very nice words and very fundamental words. There's this technical secretariat that will start working, and for that we received great support from Brussels. The services in Brussels have helped us over the last days and will help us in the future. I would like to thank the Commission for its role, and I would like to thank the young people for the role that they will play in the future in our activity. The regions in this context will have a fundamental role to play in terms of cooperation with other regions. We have an experience that we can capitalize on. We have a prospect of doing something efficient. The previous years were difficult, but we are very keen to carry on. We've received a lot of suggestions this morning and advice. Of course, we'll try to put together a planning schedule for future presidencies. The idea would be to work more efficiently and to allow the presidencies in charge to start working from the get-go. So we're going to work on that. And of course, we should not forget that we had difficulties, but we need to work and to relaunch EUSALP to find the good solutions to give more momentum in regions where there's maybe less enthusiasm for this macro-regional strategy. So we need to roll up our sleeves and give back the momentum there. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support, and thank you for the support that you will be giving us in the future. Thank you as well. And I now suggest that we meet. If you look out of the door, we meet and we take a picture of the official photo of the presidents, and then we go back into the room for the press conference. The lunch is going to be delayed.
Appi.